Uh, welcome to Eight Questions with. Well, I'm your host, Patrick. Have Cheetah with you. The Cheetah is upstairs. I have a feeling he'll be making an appearance later on. Um, yeah. So tonight's guest will be here at 8 o'clock. My time, 5 o'clock his time. Film director and screenwriter Michael Caissie. He has quite a few projects underneath his belt, and I'm looking forward to talking to him, and looking forward to introducing him to you. And boy, for the life of heaven, I'd like to know why every time I go live, all of a sudden I get the heebie-jeebies and have to itch. Huh? That's not very attractive, I don't think. Anyway, this is the half-hour part before the show where we stream it out and share it out. But I actually did that already. I threw a ton of links out there. So we'll definitely hope that people find us. If you're here, say hi. Oh, that was quick. Hi, John. How are you, sir? Uh, we are getting ready to go. So this is supposed to be the middle of Directors Week. Unfortunately, we had to move back our third director, so this is 2/3 of a Directors Week. We had we were going to we interviewed Thais Muse. These I just cannot get that name. Thais Muse yesterday from the Netherlands. Hi, Amanda. How are you? I am doing awesome. I am looking at 74-degree weather. We have had such a mild summer here. How are you, Amanda? How's everything going with you? Let's see. So we have. I heard you. I saw your Crypticon uh, footage, John. Just amazing. You had such a great time, and now you got convention fever. So I guess you'll be doing this all over again. Good, Amanda. How are the kids and your husband? Hopefully, you guys are having a great summer. Seems more and more. I'm reading more and more people are actually getting out and doing activities now. So um, has a little bit of sense of normalcy. Um, so Michael Caissie, our guest, he is a fine film director, screenwriter, and like I said, I cannot wait to introduce him to you. He's definitely going to have a lot to say. Um, and then tomorrow night, we're going to be talking to a young Australian actor named Sean Anthony Robinson. Um, it is going to be interesting because when we interview him, it'll be 8 o'clock here tomorrow night, but he'll be eating Wheaties because it'll be 10 in the morning in Australia, Friday. Hey, Mark, how are you? Man, this is what I like right here. Thank you guys so much. Everybody's coming in early, and I have a feeling this is going to be a really great interview. I really am glad you guys are here. Um, this is going to be fun. Hopefully, everybody's doing well. Today would have been a good day to go on the raft for sure, Mark. That's, Hi, Brian. How are you? Yeah, thank you for leaving such a nice comment too. I answered it. Thank you so much. Um, I talked a little bit about the Tony Moran Danielle Harris thing, and yeah, caught a little heat, which is all right. I liked it. I liked it. The fact that there was a fan for Tony who was sticking up for him. I thought that was actually pretty cool. Um, Showed a lot of passion in her answer. Uh, Hope everybody's staying nice and cold, nice and cool. Have a cold drink. Our guest will be here at 8 o'clock. But you know me, I always do this a little early. The show's advertised at 8, but I like to get up a little early so this can happen. So we're gonna have a get the chat warmed up for our guests, and you guys can all come in and take a look at it. Um, Hopefully, you guys will watch yesterday's interview with Steve Muse from. He's also a film director. He did a movie called Molly and Kill Mode, and looks like he's gearing up for another movie here soon. Hopefully, he'll start rolling on it by the end of the year. Um, but he had a very interesting take about how film is made in the Netherlands. Um, it's really different than here, that's for sure. Um, oh wow, cool. So rafting and hopefully you saw some wild horses, Mark. That's always a highlight. Uh, that's always a highlight. Our guest tonight, Michael Caissie, he has a very interesting career. Um, I before I even knew who he was, as far as on a personal level, anyway, I had actually bought and watched and reviewed his movie called Hangman, which starred Al Pacino and Carl Urban and Sarah and Shahi, and yeah, you definitely know that he was a man to keep an eye on. Um, let's see. Yeah, we'll be talking about a quite a bit of things. He's got some short films underneath his belt. Oh, right, right. I will be doing more music, Brian. I interviewed my fellow talent buyer from my past life, Jimmy Arsenault. Um, I posted that. I did an interview with him. You can look at the interview. You have to scroll up about an hour, a little over an hour before it starts. But I did do that, and I do have another singer-songwriter coming in August, a gentleman by the name of Steve Hartso. So yes, I will be doing more and more music content, um, for sure. Also going to be working on getting a DJ, a friend of mine named Rick Preston, and yeah, that guy is amazing. Um, he's one of the first DJs I know that was spinning house and electronic music, uh, deep house, and he was one of the first DJs in the San Francisco Bay Area that was doing raves. He's been spinning for years and years and years, and extremely popular. So I'm gonna be trying to book him in, hopefully in August as well. I got a few dates open for August, so I'm gonna try to do that. Um, more writers, more poets, more stuff like that. Yeah, we're gonna be diversifying here on Eight Questions with. Um, Got a couple of artists I want to get into that bring onto the show. I got a mask maker. Um, he works in resins and in latex. I got him in on August 4th. James Shaver from the Carolina Kiwi Creations. His work is absolutely amazing. Um, Hopefully, we'll be able to go inside of his workshop and maybe even see a little bit of his work. Uh, Hopefully, he's down with that, so he can show us how he makes his magic. So we got that coming up on August 4th at 8 o'clock. Um, yep, we got yeah, we have a motivational speaker coming up next month. A young lady named Tammy Smith out of Texas. She has a very remarkable story to tell. Um, our very own Rick, that some of you might see going around various horror channels and live streams. Um, our own Rick actually is a businessman. He has a new company, um, Underground Subroxa. So we're going to be talking to him about launching a boutique label on August 12th. Yeah, I did not realize that until he actually went to a convention and set up his table, and I'm going like, holy cow, he's a businessman. He's selling stuff. He's distributing. So I asked him for the interview, and he was gracious enough to say yes. So we're going to learn about what's it going to be like to be distributing and selling physical media in today's world. That's going to be that's a tough road, but we'll be talking about him about launching a business, the world of extreme horror, and why is it popular. We'll be talking about dogs because he's a huge dog lover, and all sorts of things. Um, hopefully in September, we will get a couple more faces in here. I'm hoping to have director Thomas Churchill come in September. Um, if he's done with his film, he's making a film right now, and I'm trying to get Thomas Churchill to come in, and also Daniel Roebuck. Hopefully, both those gentlemen will be able to come in September, and maybe some other guests, some other things I'm working on for the show. But if you guys have any suggestions on how I can make this better, I would love to have comments and feedback. I probably should be asking for that sooner than later. But if you have any questions or suggestions, if you have anybody who you think would make a really good guest, like Brian just mentioned, um, uh, yeah, drop them in the chat. I would definitely go and take a look at it. I mean, I'm open to talking to anybody. If any of you want to get talked to, well, let's drop a comment. Be happy to do it. It's not just all about names. I like to talk to anybody. That's what makes the interviewing so much fun. You just talk to just a lot of different people. Let's see. Observer's channel. He might be game for an interview. He was a personal friend of Kurt Cobain. That's funny you mentioned that, Brian, because one of the people I'm trying to land for the show is a friend of mine named Natalie Freitas. And Natalie was a talent buyer way before I was. And she booked the same club that I did. She booked a club called Marsugi's in San Jose, California. And Natalie Freitas actually booked Nirvana. She booked Nirvana, and it was check this out for a bill: Nirvana and Mudhoney. She booked them both. They're both touring. I want to say Nirvana was touring off on Bleach, I could be wrong about that. I think it was Bleach, their first record, and Mudhoney was touring on probably something they just released on Sub Pop or Easy Records. So yeah, she actually booked Nirvana before anybody else did, and but that was Marsugi's. Um, Marsugi's had that always had that reputation as far as booking bands before anybody else did. As far as that goes, I mean, at least in the Bay Area, before they got signed and famous, um, we had Weezer come in through there. We had wow, there's so many Sublime, Jet Boy, Royal Crown Review. Um, wow, you name. There's so many bands that that came through there that cut their teeth, so to speak. Also, if you guys are in here, if you guys don't mind sharing us out, that would be amazing. Hopefully, people will come in. Okay, I will go over the calendar because I know you guys really want to hear that. Uh, and we have some exciting news. Our very own Hobbs Horror. He booked his first guest for the midnight hour. Uh, he booked a young lady named Kelly Helen Thompson, who's an actor, who's an actress, director, and she is going to come pay us a visit on the midnight hour on August 8th at 10 p.m. And she is so us. She's so us. Um, we looked at her credits and we were just shaking our heads, going like, you know what? She is so midnight hour. So congratulations to our friend Hobbs' first booking on the show, and so we're really excited for that. And she'll be here on August 8th. I'm supposed to let you guys know that we're doing a horror trivia on August 1st. Horror trivia on August 1st. So I don't know exactly what Hobbs has got planned for that. I know that there will probably be some prizes of some sort. Um, oh, there he is. See, all you have to do is mention Hobbs or mention pumpkins, and Hobbs will come. So yeah, just telling him Hobbs about booking Kelly Helen Thompson for the show on the 8th. I know that we're doing horror trivia on the 1st. The 15th, 22nd, and 29th, we don't know what we're doing yet. We're doing something. I don't know what we're doing, but we're going to be doing something. Next week or tomorrow, like I said, tomorrow we have Australian actor Sean Anthony Robinson will be here. And then next week, on the 25th, we have John Oak Dalton. He'll be coming into the midnight hour at 10 p.m. He has a new movie out called Scarecrow County that we'll be talking about. Lots of fun. Yep, lots of fun. I cannot wait for this for Kelly Helen Thompson. Like I said, I mean, I looked at her resume and she is so us. So excited. There's so much questions to ask. Um, so that's gonna be a lot of fun. John Oak Dalton will be here. He's got a new, like I said, he's got a new movie out called Scarecrow County. That looks absolutely bonkers. People have been buying it off the shelf. He's been posting pictures of it. And so that'll be on the 25th of July. On the 27th, we have novelist Chris Farnsworth. He'll be here on the 27th at 8 p.m. Uh, next Wednesday, our guest for tomorrow, we had to push it back till next Wednesday, and that will be director-screenwriter Christopher Moore, who who wrote Triggered, and is getting ready to wrap up on Children of Sin. He'll be here 8 o'clock next Wednesday, and then next Thursday we have producer Laura Hunter Drago, and playwright Samantha Mocker, who wrote and produced a play called To the New Girl. That's absolutely positively amazing. One of the best I saw last year. Made my top end of the list move. The best of the year list. So that's gonna wipe out July for us. So August, like I said, August is gonna be a lot of fun too. I still got some holes, so I'm still working on it, looking on it. So stay tuned. We're getting close to the to October, to the Spooktacular. Yep, the Spooktacular will be here October 1st. Getting excited. Went to the Dollar Tree again today, and real quick, and Halloween is in full effect. I see candy being wrapped up, pumpkin, everything Halloween starting to show up. Let's see what else is going on with us. I think that's about it. Um, I know I'm sort of spinning here. Should have something to talk about. But yeah. Oh, went to the library. Everybody wants to know that, right? So went to the library. Wasn't very busy, but they had a lot of stuff there, but did not really find too much. I'll definitely have to. I'll show. I'm being told that I need to show it tonight. Trying to figure out if we'll do that tonight or wait till next week. Um, because I really didn't get any. I really didn't get very much. I got five. I got five items. Not very much. Um, have a lot of the shelves are full, but their shelves are full with not very good stuff now. So they're going to be doing another bag sale next week, and hopefully that'll sweep the shelves and get new stuff in. Let's see. So we got 4 watching and 2 thumbs up. Okay. I'm going to showcase Michael's movie database page so you can actually see his page and what he has done in his career. So if you guys take a look at that and you guys have any questions later on, you guys will be able to do that. All right. Okay. Hmm. All right. Doing a couple other things here. Mild day here in Michigan. We had thunderstorms a couple days ago, and we are at 73 degrees here today. It is very mild here. Of course, that means they jumped all over our roads fast. So, people are starting to show up again. Thanks so much for coming in. If you're here, and Michael will be here at 8 o'clock. I just got here a little early to, well, obviously, I'm sort of like, I don't know why I'm so sort of tongue tied today. Um, but I'm tongue tied. But Michael will be here in a minute, and we'll get this party going. If you're lurking in the chat, feel free to come up and say hello so we can see you. And there we go. That's what I'm talking about. Greetings, greetings. Uh, yes, cheetahs do take naps. I can testify to that. Cheetahs take my cheetah takes a lot of naps. He's actually enjoyed his summer so far. It has not been really hot here in Michigan. Not nearly by half. I wish I could tell you why, but I'm not looking to give horse in the mouth. We've been getting a lot of rain this summer, a lot of thunderstorms. So we've been really fortunate. I just heard from Urban Goth and Foxy Lady in outdoors that the UK is being hit with that heat wave. It is a killer heat wave, and people are they're they're dying over there. It's so hard to think about that if you really think about it. You're on an island, you're surrounded by water, and yet you're being baked. Uh, so hopefully everybody there in the UK is we all have friends over there, and so definitely send them some cool vibes. Uh, Thank you guys all for showing up for the show. I appreciate it so much. Uh, Last night we did a pop up, and it was only supposed to be like for 30 minutes, but it turned into another fun impromptu gathering, as they always are. We were up to about 2 in the morning. We had a lot of fun. Um, and I got on my soapbox and talked about Tony Moran for a minute or two. Um, Obviously, not everybody agreed with what I had to say, but um, which is, it's like, of course, it's just one person. Um, but it was entertaining to read the responses. Um, it was definitely a weird situation, that's for sure. Um, I don't think he's quite the villain that he's being portrayed out to be, but I do think he is definitely guilty of taking something way too far. And probably should have. Oh, here's our guest. Greetings, sir.
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. Uh, welcome.
Good to see you again. How's
Good
everything
to
going?
see you. I was just I mentioned that last night I was a little insomniac, so I went up and I was talking about this incident that happened with this actor named Tony Moran. I'm not sure if you heard about it. Probably, maybe not.
No.
He, he was originally an actor. He's an actor who initially played Michael Myers in the Halloween '78 movie.
Got it.
He literally had like 5 seconds of screen time, and and of course, he used that to launch a career. And well, he got in trouble because he was going around different conventions, and it looked like he was just running the films and the fandom down a little bit too much. And someone filmed him on various different times doing this, and they put out a video of it, and he got backlash from it. And so an actress named Danielle Harris was trying to fix it. And I
Oh,
went back.
I did hear about this. Yeah, they had like a reconciliation or something where she met up with him or something. It was a video. I didn't see it, but now I know what you're talking about at least. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched the tape. I watched the video. I mean, yeah, it's edited, and it's definitely with Tony. He's different shows, and he definitely like he's not the villain. Like I said, he's not the villain. He's portrayed out to be.
Right.
But I think he did run off a little bit too much. I think he was trying for his William Shatner moment, and I think it sort of blew up on him a little bit. And so they're trying to fix it. So hopefully they can. I mean, hopefully he can, because it was affecting him at conventions. He was being disinvited to conventions.
Wow.
The fans weren't going to his table, so it was affecting his livelihood in some sense. And like I said, I don't think he was out there just running it down. I think he was telling funny stories, and but I think he probably should have maybe not been so profane in how he did it.
Yeah.
And but
Balancing act.
as you live, you learn, right?
Only way to do it, right? There's no book telling you how to do all these things.
No, no, not at all. I remember there was a gentleman named Robert Irvine. He was a chef, and it was funny because he told a story, and I think it just started out in with a small group, and he told people that he had baked the cake for Princess Diana and Charles's wedding.
Uh,
And that little story slowly the more it got told, the more it got embellished.
right.
And soon enough, he was telling that story everywhere. And then someone caught him at it and said, That's not true." And basically showed him at a bad light. I don't think he was a bad guy at all. I just think he just got caught up in the moment, and he
Yeah.
ran with it, and it just blew up in his face. But sometimes that happens.
Yep.
Well, how are you today, sir?
I'm
Welcome,
good.
welcome again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me again. I really appreciate it. Excited to be on with you.
So we got some people in the chat. They're here. All horror fans, all fans of your work. We'll have open up the chat for questions a little bit later.
Okay.
I definitely want to. I think we need to just talk about how you and I met, because this is one of my favorite experience stories in my career,
Yeah.
for sure. It was definitely, I learned a lot from it too. So I write a blog. This is for everybody in the chat may not know this, but I write a blog called The Inner Circle, and my film review series is Have Cheetah Will View. So a couple of years back, I actually bought and reviewed Hangman. And I liked the movie. I thought it was good. I thought that I thought it was just very well acted, cool story. And so later on, I saw that Michael Caissie here had directed his first film called Hunter's Moon. So I contacted him for an interview. I said, "Would you like to do an interview for 8 Questions With," which was a written interview on my blog? And Michael very graciously said he would do that. He would like to come on and do an interview. So in between that, I reviewed Hunter's Moon, and I was like I was more frustrated. I mean, that's how I was with the film. I loved the concept of what I saw. I was just frustrated, when watching it because I could see greatness in it.
Mhm.
So my review wasn't the perkiest.
Yeah,
Uh,
it was honest, and it was
yeah, I was honest about it, and so I posted it up there, and pretty soon I get a ping from Michael saying, so yeah, about this interview. Yeah, I don't think I can do that interview after seeing your review. I don't think Lionsgate would be too happy with me after what you wrote about the film.
right.
Now, I like Michael. I think Michael's a great guy, and I was not upset at all. In fact, I said I understood. I totally understood the position I had put him in, but I still wanted to hear him. I still wanted to talk to him. I couldn't. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do that, so I booked him on a podcast
Yeah,
with Doctor Evil.
Doctor
And
Evil. Yeah,
Dr. Evil. So I booked him on a podcast. I said, I might not be able to do it, but I still want to hear it. So here we go. And so he did Dr. Evil's podcast. Um, and you were very gracious to me for that. And I mean, you would have been within your right to just sit there and say, hey, you know what, dude, just keep going,
mm,
um, I was very appreciative that you did not do that and that you understood. I wasn't trying to hurt anybody's feelings or anything like that.
right.
I was more frustrated because I love the concept of Hunter's Moon. It's one of the best I've seen. Um, and so you said that we would get together for the next film,
I did.
and we did. Well, here we are. We're doing this. You are just are you have you wrapped it, or are you in the middle of shooting No Tears in Hell?
We wrapped last month, so we're in the post part of the film, so editing and all of that stuff, all that fun stuff that happens after cameras stop rolling. Before,
Uh,
yeah,
so we are here. We are today, and I we did an interview with actor Daniel Hill on the Midnight Hour,
yeah,
and one of the things that I talked to Daniel about, before we went up, was that we would not discuss Hunter's Moon, and unless it was specifically asked for. Now, I have to admit, and I was so happy when I told this to Michael. You guys absolutely, in the chat, you guys absolutely love that movie. Uh, I mean, you guys are asking questions about it. You guys own it. You guys talk about it. It's starting to pop up when people talk about werewolf movies. It's starting to pop up. Uh, so people are getting around to watching it. It is starting to become a cult favorite. I could not be more happier about that.
thanks, man.
Um, the way I look at it is, the more people talk about it, the more hype it gets, the more beloved it becomes. I just see another chance for the story to be told, the next chapter, and
Sure.
really, honestly, I really want to see that as a fan. I really want to see the next step. Um, Even if he wrote a book about it,
Uh,
I would buy that book yesterday.
all right, that's good to know. Not a bad idea, actually, to write a book about it.
It, I'm actually going to be talking to a novelist who's done something really unique too, because the genre of supernatural, like vampires and werewolves, and it is so hard to come up with an original idea. So I guess that's actually, before I get to anywhere else, I'm going to ask you that one question: is how did you come up with that idea of a clan, a werewolf family hunting down killers?
Um, Honestly, the answer is I'm not really sure. Not really sure. I know that's not a great answer, but um, one of the things, I've been writing for as long as I can remember, and one of the things that I was always gravitated towards in terms of the horror genre in specific is I'm a huge fanboy in terms of just horror movies, and even especially the classics. So I figured as I got into different mediums of storytelling that if I was going to go into that area of something that I really loved and grew up around, I wanted to pay respect to what had been done prior, but do something a little bit different. So turn some things on their heads. And one of the things about Hunter's Moon that I knew kind of right away was I wanted it to be a female empowerment movie, which it very much is, in regards to, you see so many of these, and you and I had talked about it yesterday. These movies where these women are just, what did we talk about? We talked about I Spit on Your Grave yesterday.
Right.
My thing was like, we see the woman who's helpless, and then she does her revenge or whatever. But I wanted the joke to be on the bad guys right out the gate, and I just thought it was kind of a cool way to kind of put the audience in the world of these young girls being stuck at home. And then the twist is that they've been kind of orchestrating this from the get-go. So I just thought that was kind of a fun, something that I would want to see. I think that's the ultimate thing, regardless of whether it's Hangman or anything else that I've ever worked on. Um, just do something that I personally would want to sit down and watch or read or whatever. So that's kind of yeah. It was originally Hunter's Moon was originally called The Orchard. It was one of the first scripts that I had written after I quit my day job and started writing full time. Probably about 8 years ago at this point, and that was I sat down and I cranked it out and just was as excited to finish and read it myself as you were about the concept. I just thought, wow, there's something here that's fun and kind of unique, but also pays homage to other horror movies that or stories that I grew up loving. That's my
Uh,
long answer to your question.
yeah, let me step back out. This always happens to me when I first start the show. I always get frozen, so I have to step out and I'll come right back in.
Okay,
1 second.
no problem.
All right. Sorry about that.
It's all right. Just leave me to look at myself, which is just so awkward and weird.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. It's like the first right when I first start the live, it does that or it'll freeze up on me.
Yeah.
And actually it still is, and I have no idea why, but you know what? I don't necessarily need that. Just
It looks okay on this end, but you're not frozen
yeah,
on the.
no, we're fine here. Uh so let's go back to the beginning. Well, I guess that would be 8 years. Um I mean, you said you started screenwriting. I mean, where did you how did you get the fever to become a screenwriter? And was it always to be behind the lens, or was it, were you inspired by any particular writer or director or whatnot? How did you get involved in the business?
Uh, Actually, it was 20 years ago. 8 years ago is right around the time I started doing nothing but writing and supporting myself and my family as a writer. But 20 years ago, actually probably 21 at this point, I moved out to Los Angeles after a year or two of college, and yeah, I had been writing since I was a young kid. My grandmother had always encouraged me, just you love to write, just be creative, and it's one of those things that just kind of I enjoyed it, and it comes I don't say naturally, but it's just something that's very fluid and organic for me. So and I've always just found putting something just my way of telling stories was just putting it on the page. That's since evolved into the directing side of things. But to answer your question, when I first moved out to LA, it was to write and direct and possibly act, and I figured out pretty quickly that acting wasn't necessarily my calling for many reasons. But the writing kind of stuck, and I just had day job after day job, which became careers. And about 8 years ago, at this point, I told my wife, I think I want to take this leap of faith if you'll take it with me and just quit the day job that was basically supporting us, which had become a career at that point, running restaurants. And Hangman, I don't think Hangman had come out yet, but it was purchased or it was casting, or so it seemed like the right time to do it. My thought was that the career trajectory had started, so that's when that happened. And it wasn't a massive launching part of career wise for me. It didn't do, it didn't. I don't live in the Hollywood Hills, so I'm still, struggling and still fighting the good fight. So if anybody who's watching, who's a screenwriter or actor or director or whatever, who understands that, it's still a challenge, but I've been very fortunate, and there's been some tight moments, but yeah, I basically, when I go to work, it's either to sit down at the computer and write, or it's to go on set and direct, or in some cases one and then followed by the other. And yeah, it's amazing that my job is my dream, which I know not everybody can say that, and I'm just appreciative of that. That part is never. I never try and gloss over that. I'm very aware that even though it's not the easiest, and I still have my challenges, I'm appreciative that's what I get to do for my work.
I I think a lot of people think that I think a lot of people when they see you, your name on a movie box, or they see an actor on TV, like a stream show or something like that. I think a lot of people instantly think that the person they're watching is like rich and moving in big circles, and it's not really like that at all, is it? I mean, it's
It's a
you have,
really small
you have to
percentage.
keep moving.
If you're a regular, on a television show that's had some success, if you're, obviously the upper echelon of director, actor, writer, whatever, fill in the blank. But it's a small percentage. I mean, we're talking probably one to 2% of everybody else in the industry. That's the only people that are living that lifestyle that, across the country and across the globe, that people have been led to believe that Hollywood is this very elite, very wealthy establishment, and there certainly is wealth, and those people have earned it. I have that utmost respect for those. But by and large, the percentage are these people who are sacrificing everything and doing the struggle, and it's not a glamorous thing. It's the money's not always there, and it's a challenge, especially in the independent film world. One of the things that I really respect about what you do, um, is promote and help these people that are like myself, who are are doing things, but there's still a lot of work to be done so that we can still continue to get our next movie, do our next script, get our next part. You had mentioned Daniel Hill. He and I talk regularly just about. I mean, you and I talked about this yesterday. I think Daniel's ready to pop. I expect him to be a star, but I've thought that since day one. And everything that he's done since I've worked with him has only led me to think of that even more. So it's you find these people who are fighting the good fight, if you will, with you, and you respect what they do, and you just kind of, whenever you have the opportunity to help push that or promote that, or nurture it, whatever it is, and what you do on your side here is a part of that. So I appreciate that, because it is, yeah, it's not, it's a struggle. To do what you do and what we do. It's not always easy, but again, I appreciate it because I still get to do what I love, regardless of what it looks like. But yeah, I'm not, like I said, I'm not living in the Hollywood Hills, and sometimes it's paycheck to paycheck. And I have 3 kids, and it's a challenge. And sometimes it gets a little scary. You have to really kind of check yourself. Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Because it's feast or famine, pretty much. There's
Yeah.
times where it's really well, really good, and going really well, and then there's times where it's like, oh my goodness, wow, this is like a scary place to be out on this branch that's ready to crack. And luckily, I've just kept my nose down and just pushed, and I've had some great friends help me out and support me, and all that stuff, in terms of just you just there's the notion to quit. I think happens quite a bit for creative people because of all the other stuff, the creative side of stuff. Not to say, how do I say this, but that's the easy part. That's what we're drawn to do naturally, anyways. That the writing for me, in perspective, is easy compared to the actual struggle to stay in the business and make a living off of that, and do things that I want to work with and work with people that I want to work with. Um, yeah, that's the creative side is the easiest. Navigating everything else, that's the challenge. And if you don't have a good support system and you're by yourself, it's I see why people quit. When I first moved out here 20 years ago, I have friends that aren't doing whether they're actors or writers or directors, who have moved away, who have done, now they're doing other things, and I respect their decision to do that. I get it, and sometimes it's what they're called to do, and sometimes I think they just get forced to do that. And I've been fortunate that I'm still alive and kicking. More gray in my beard than when I started, but I'm still
Right.
here.
Yeah, it's not an easy business, and I totally respect that. I mean, I have friends who are in your position as well. They tell me the same thing. It's definitely a dogfight, to get the next job, and sometimes it can shake your confidence too. You shake your confidence, and you're wondering, am I supposed to be doing this or whatnot?
Hmm.
Obviously, obviously for you it is. Um, your writing is above average. I mean,
Thanks,
You
man.
don't go out there and grab a cast like you did for Hangman or even Hunter's Moon without being a great writer. Both those movies have just, look at the star power in them. I mean, and they're there because for the story, for the writing. So I definitely think you're definitely on the right track for that. But where did you come out from? I mean, before you got to LA, where did you move in from?
Yeah, I grew up in Massachusetts, just outside of the Cape Cod area. So I was born and raised in Massachusetts. Um, Went to high school in a small town called Wareham, which is just outside of the Cape. And then after high school, went to Boston College for about a year and a half. And I kind of already knew I was coming out to Los Angeles to pursue this dream. So rather than trying to, there was some stuff that ended up pushing me in that direction, anyways. But rather than doing the 4 years of college, I was going to school for business, which which certainly helps. I'm drawn to the business side of this business, so I think it's helped me in terms of producing and just the way navigate certain things. But I knew I wasn't going to be a stockbroker. I knew I wasn't going to run a business. I knew that creatively was where wanted to go. So I just said, you know what, made the moved 3,000 miles away, drove cross country, and spent every single dollar that I had saved up to get the first apartment in Los Angeles because I had no job and really not a lot of credit history, and so they made me pay. I remember this specifically. They made me pay 6 months of rent right out the gate to get my apartment, which at the time, looking back at what the cost was versus what it is 20 years later, it still drained like every single penny that I had saved up. So right out the gate, I was like, oh, so this is how this is going to be. But there was something exciting and liberating about that. I lived in Culver City and I could see Sony Studios if I walked outside my little studio apartment. Now the apartment was the size of a closet and it was one room, and I didn't have a bed or any of that stuff. But literally, if I walked out and I looked to the left, there was the big walls for Sony Studios, and I was like, I've arrived. I've this At least it's close enough for me to touch, literally. Um,
Right.
how do I get to the other side of that wall and actually be working there? It was something I hadn't figured out yet, and in some aspects still haven't figured out yet. All the answers to that question, but that's where yeah. So my home is always actually over my shoulder here. I don't know if you can see it. That's on the wall is a Boston night sky. So Boston's always going to be home to me in terms of like if I say where am I from, it's always Massachusetts. That's never going to change. Even though now I've crossed that threshold where I've lived in Los Angeles more than I've lived in Massachusetts, which was kind of a weird, daunting realization that I had a little while ago. Going like, oh my gosh, I've spent more of my life here than growing up. So it was that weird. I just did it. I think last year. I think I crossed that halfway mark. So
Um, let's see. I'm looking in the chat here. Hobbs mentions it's like Big Ben from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Uh, the fans want him to retire. His numbers are down, but it's his passion. I get it. It's the dream and the love.
I'm not quite as Big Ben. Well, short of
Yeah,
hair.
and you're actually a hell of a nice human. You're a hell of a nice human being too.
Thanks for that.
But
And
yeah,
yeah,
I yeah. Hobbs is we have a running joke here. I read that, Hobbs. You didn't think I would, but I did. He's a Bengals fan,
oh,
so we're
I'm sorry.
oh yeah, me too. That's why I keep telling him. I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
mean, thank you for that, Michael. Thank you so much for that.
I'm ready.
Uh,
More
so
brownie.
I'm really intrigued in your story when you mentioned that. I'm thinking to myself, going like, all that way to LA, and like, why not New York? Why not the theater?
Yeah,
So much closer.
it's weird because I love theater too. I had gotten into theater, not as I should have gotten in there earlier, but I got into theater towards the end of high school and was acting in plays and actually co-directed a play right before we drove out. Um, I don't know. Part of me was like, I guess I equated New York with theater and Los Angeles with Hollywood and film, and I as much as I love theater, and part of me is actually even now I'm thinking, gosh, like maybe I should start writing some plays and try and do that. I also think I'd been on the East Coast my entire life. And to go to New York, it was such, not a short drive, but I just wanted to just kind of make my own, I guess, path, if you will. And going to New York, I felt like part of it, I think, and whether maybe this is more subconscious than anything else, I thought, had I failed in New York, had I struggled, it would have been
Jesus.
so much easier for me to just come back to Massachusetts and, say I gave it a shot or whatever, or end up doing, working, doing whatever. Being in California, moving and actually driving out there, I thought, I'm going to do it. It's going to take a hell of a lot of stuff to have me come all the way back with my tail between my legs. And there's been moments, even recently, where I'm like, oh, and now I have a family here, so I'm definitely more stationed here than when I was single. But I think that's part of it. Part of it was the location, the distance. Part of it was, I was enamored with Hollywood. I've always been enamored with actors in general, and part of it is, classic Hollywood. Montgomery Clift, Brando, Dean, all those guys, Pacino, De Niro. Start in New York, do theater. Hollywood comes and grabs you, pulls you into the film business, and then that's where your stardom kind of pops, obviously. So I think part of me, I was like, I'll just cut out the New York side, just go right to LA and go do movies. I don't know. So I think that's kind of like, I don't think I thought it out as much as I'm trying to make it out seem like right now, but I think subconsciously, I think that's all of those things are a culmination of what made me decide Los Angeles versus New York. And I love New York. I love the city. So part of me thinks there's a real part of me thinks maybe at some point in the future I will live in New York because I love New York City, and there's an energy there that doesn't necessarily translate to Los Angeles. Los Angeles is very spacious, and it's more of a, everyone has to drive everywhere. There's not that kind of like buzz, that grit, that energy that you get in New York and Boston and Chicago and those cities. LA doesn't have that. So part of me wants that when the time's right, just not at the moment. Is where the answer to that.
Now, when you moved out, did you move out with your wife together? I mean, did she come out with you, or did she join you afterwards?
No, I met my wife doing my career. My last career, I was running restaurants, and my wife a pastry chef. So we actually met at work running restaurants. Well, I was running restaurants. She was working there. That was years later. No, my wife is actually from Long Beach area. Grew up out here, and we kind of live in that area now. So she's the local one, and I'm the transplant. But yeah, there were many years between my arrival and finding the mother of my children.
So what did you, when you were younger? I mean, what did you watch? I mean, what did you watch when you to get inspired to become an actor or whatnot? I mean, what inspired you to take the leap of it? Was there anybody that you watched on TV that you looked at or admired and were influenced by?
From the writing side of things, it was Stephen King. At a way too early age, I would read Stephen King books. I remember a specific story. I actually ended up working in our town library, and I was in high school as part of my part-time job as a page. But prior to that, I had gone in. I don't know how old I was, but I went to check out a Stephen King book, and the librarian said, "Are you old enough to be taking this book out?" And I said, "Well, I've already read this one, this one, this one, this one." And she's like, "All right." And then years later, when I ended up got that job, she was my boss. So we laughed about that story because I was significantly younger when she had her whole career. She had just been that librarian there. But Stephen King was hugely influential to me. And then in terms of like horror movies, one of the things that I told Amanda Wyss was, Nightmare on Elm Street scared the living crap out of me as a kid. I remember, I don't think I ever saw the entire movie. I might have seen a piece or something. And to this day, my friends will joke about this. I'm still afraid to kind of watch the movie. Like, it's so good. I've seen it a bunch of times, but like part of me still I'm still that little kid every time I put that on. Or if
the part where he walks down the alley and his arms elongate.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that was like, I saw that and I'm like, you just knew right then, you were like, that is really going to be different.
Yeah, and that's Amanda in that scene. So I thought, I was like, well, Amanda's going to be in my first movie. Maybe that'll help me kind of get over that just like phobia that I have for this genre masterpiece. But I have like a love terrified relationship with that film. So Wes Craven, I think the second tier to that was when Scream came out. I was in college. I think the first Scream had come out. The two movies that kind of pushed me to it was the timing thing. So Good Will Hunting with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck had come out and was hugely popular, and these were these two Massachusetts guys that had come, and they'd had some success in Hollywood prior to that, but that movie really just I was in the city at the time, going to college. That movie came out, took place in the city. That and Scream was kind of this weird marriage, two films that kind of really pushed me in the direction of screenwriting, I think, because I got a copy of Kevin Williamson's script for Scream, and I went and bought the book version of Good Will Hunting, the screenplay, and I just studied it, and that's actually I never went to school for screenwriting, or read a bunch of screenwriting books. I've perused a few of the more popular ones, but basically I was self-taught in regards to reading a ton of produced scripts, one after the other, and learning that way. So those were the writing and the film side of it. But I've always been drawn to actors. I just think there's something innately interesting about their process and writing for them, and also the fact that they actually can take the words that I write and breathe life into them. So that was when I was doing theater as an actor. Someone had mentioned that my eyes or something reminded them of Montgomery Clift, and I was like, who the hell is Montgomery Clift?
Oh
Looked
my.
looked him up, and then I was like, oh my god, this guy's amazing. And
Yeah.
so I kind of went down that rabbit hole. And, I had already knew about Brando and Dean, and they were obviously these big icons. But without Montgomery Clift, I'm not really sure. I think his name really gets left off of that trio. His contemporary was obviously early Brando, who was they're just so very polar opposite. Cliff was more an introvert and definitely more of a softer, almost a feminine side, versus Brando is just this raw masculinity. And so, the stories that Dean was like, I'm going to be a combination of these two. And if you watch James Dean, he kind of is. So it's kind of this interesting thing. But I started reading, when I was in college, I started reading a lot of biographies about mostly actors. So I read a ton of Brando biographies, a ton of Cliff biographies, Dean, Marilyn Monroe, Charlie Chaplin. The list goes on, and I just was fascinated with, and I still have this fascination where people come from, their struggles, their successes, their falls from grace, all of these things. I just find very fascinating. I also have a similar interest in terms of athletes. Where they start, their struggles, how they got from wherever they started and to reach the pinnacle of their success, and then some of them having falls from grace as well. I just get drawn to the human side, the human story is really fascinating to me. So I've just every time I got in a rut in Los Angeles and struggled and realized, like, do I still want to do this? I would find myself in a bookstore back when they actually still existed, reading magazines and interviews, mostly from actors in magazines, whether it was GQ or whatever, just about fill in the blank, whatever their interview, whatever movie they were pushing at that point. I just found a new, refound inspiration to continue trying to be a storyteller. So it's just interesting that, yeah, for me, working with the actors as a director too, that's kind of translated. I just find that's my favorite part of directing is the actual working with the actors.
I have an interesting question for you because you're from that side of the fence. I have a really, and this comes up, with my friends here and elsewhere, but you mentioned Scream. Um, I mean, as a film, as a screenwriter and as a director, would you have done would you have done the first scene differently than Wes Craven did with Drew Barrymore?
No, not at all. I think that's it depends on when you saw Scream too. There's a lot of this, especially in the horror genre. Um, if you're able to go see a movie completely pure and not know anything about it and not have any spoilers and maybe not even seen a trailer, I think I'm not trying to romanticize this experience, but I went and saw Scream, and I don't think I had even seen a trailer. I'm not even sure how that's possible, but I swear that was the case. And I sat down, and after that first scene, I just remember going like, it was what I'm assuming Wes and Drew and the producers and had hoped for, in regards to like, oh my God, they killed Drew Barrymore. Because Drew Barrymore, I grew up with Drew Barrymore. She was a star. She's still a star. To kill her in the first scene, I was like, wow, all the gloves are off. Where do you go from here? And the rest of the cast, I knew some of them. I'd seen some of them in other stuff, but it was like, okay, now anything could happen in this movie. If you're going to kill the biggest name of the movie right out the gate, it just puts you in a place of suspended. Like, it was just such a visceral experience, and I just remember that. But when you read the script, I read the script, and that scene on page on a paper is just as powerful. Even without, I don't want to say disrespect to Drew, but like Kevin Williamson, I think, is a genius. I think that script is brilliantly written, and he's written some other brilliant stuff as well. And I got to meet him briefly, and I told him that. It was awkward. It's an awkward thing to tell somebody, but I had a few drinks, and it was at Sundance, and we were smoking a cigarette together. But it's a weird thing to tell another human being that, hey, I read your stuff. I think you're a genius. It's a weird thing for him to go like, all right, man, this guy's weird. But he was very gracious.
I think peer to peer is always welcomed. I do. I think I think he appreciated it as a peer.
At that point, I think I was 20, maybe 21. I was 21. It was like 2000, whatever it was. So at the Sundance Film Festival, his party, his house party. It was really, we had a cigarette, we talked. I think at one point he had said, someone has pointed out that there's two flaws in my script. It's about Scream, and I buzzed me. I was like, oh yeah, what are they? And he's like, I'm not gonna fucking tell you. I was like, oh, touche. That's fair. That's fair. That's a fair thing to say. But yeah, that's
He was just sort of thinking out loud, almost, right? It's almost in his head. It's like he's thinking
yeah,
out loud. And
and he made a point. I remember this specifically. I think Scream 3 was about to come out or was in production or something, and he was like, he said it a couple times. It was weird. He was like, just so you know, I'm not involved with Scream 3. I was like, okay. I swear he said it a couple times. He's like, I respect I love the writer that they, just so you know, I'm not involved with that one. I'm like, okay. And then, as far as like the films themselves, 3 is obviously looked on a little bit differently than the other films in the series. So it was almost, I don't know if he knew, or I think it's also like that was his baby, and it's like you get so defensive. They had to literally hand the ratings to somebody else so he was going to go direct something, or I don't remember what he was doing. Maybe it was teaching Mrs. Tingle or something like that. But yeah, it was just funny because I swear he said that to me twice, and I was like, I got it, man. Heard you the first time. It's just funny, funny things when people say, yeah.
see, that's what I mean. That's what I was talking about earlier. Like how gracious you were because it must be hard. I mean, especially since you just started. You just put out your first movie, you direct your first movie, and and like you said, you're mentioning how one reviewer absolutely went bonkers over Hunter's Moon.
Yeah,
Absolutely loved it. I mean, tell us about that. Tell us about that critic. I really like that story. I think it's really cool.
yeah. I wish I knew. Crap, I'll have to look up her name. It was a female critic, and when the film first came out, I was on Twitter constantly just because what I wanted to do was try and cultivate any kind of one of the things that you and I talked about social media yesterday too. I have a love-hate relationship, like I'm sure almost everybody does.
Mhm.
But what it does do is it allows access to people that you wouldn't normally get, and anybody that was watching the film uh, that was talking about it. I wanted to kind of start. I wanted to just be available, or whatever that means, as it is. And I read almost every review, and some of them I was just like, oh my god. And then at one point I was like, I'm not going to read reviews. And then I think I read that one, and I was like, holy, this. I think she likes the movie more than I do. I mean, it was like it was one of these eye-opening things where, and it was also so well written, and it was so highbrow that I was like, I reached out to her and I was like, I tweeted her or something. I was like, thank you so much for this review. I don't know what to say. I'm like, I can't believe that you liked it that much. And she's like, I did. I really did. I saw a lot of value in it, and knew what you were trying to do. And for the likes of me, I apologize. I cannot remember what her name is, and I'd have to look it up. But yeah, it was one of these ones where I was like, I told my oldest son the other day, uh, if as a creative person, if I were to, he was talking about who plays baseball and the challenges of having ups and downs in sports. And I just said, it's like, if I showed you some of the reviews to some of my films, you would wonder why I'm still in the business because some of them are brutal, and that's the thing. People are entitled, as you know, to their opinion. And I think when it works well, even if it's a negative review, I mean, look where we are now. We're having this conversation. We became friends pretty quickly prior to this, what we're doing here. And even if it's a negative review, it opens up. I think if it's done right, opens up the dialogue between filmmaker, actor, whatever, with people that review and watch these movies and are fans of them and all that stuff. The only time I ever took a review personally was about Hangman, because a reviewer actually called me out in the review, and it started to attack my livelihood, which I just was offended by. Like, basically she pulled up my IMDb page and she's like, I can't believe, because she didn't like Hangman. She's like, I can't believe Michael Caissie has all these films and some kind of pre-production, and there's women screenwriters that don't get the same opportunities that he does. And I reached out to her saying, like,
Wow.
all due respect,
Wow.
yeah, I took it personally. One, because I was raised by my mother and grandmother predominantly. I'm married. I'm raising a daughter. All these things, and then I had at that time I was in. I think we were filming or getting ready to film Hunter's Moon, which again is a female empowerment movie. And I said, you don't know anything about me, so to attack me personally, I said, plus I don't know if you've ever been to a movie set, because you're giving the screenwriter way more power to begin with. We write the script, and then so many other hands go on it. And so, some of the things that you're knocking the script for weren't, it has nothing to do with the script. It has to do with this, that, or whatever. So, I would encourage you, if you want to continue. And I was trying to be proactive about it, but I was offended. I said, being proactive, I encourage you to go to a film set if you really want to do reviews. And she was a aspiring screenwriter. I said, the other thing I would tell you, it's not a competition between screenwriters. Support each other. It's a really hard profession, and I'll be the first to tell you that I try and support other filmmakers. And you're not wrong that women screenwriters, directors, DPs, whatever, they do need more opportunities. I'm the first person to say that. And anytime that I can push that agenda, I'll do it. But in the middle of a review, attacking me personally for your soapbox moment, you're crossing things up. If you want to do a think piece about how female writers should get more opportunities, that's one thing. But this is, you're mixing two things, and I'm taking it personally because you're attacking me by name several times in the review. And of course, she blocked me. And
Oh, wow.
I said, okay.
Wow. You know what? It's just people like that. They put their own cause. They take a big step backwards with it.
That's
They defeat the whole purpose.
yeah.
By opening a dialogue by being that narrow-minded.
Especially because if anyone knows me, I'm the furthest thing from that. I'm not misogynistic. I'm not. I think those voices that don't get the chances, whether it be women or people of color or whatever, I think we need to find a way to get them more opportunities. And I'm not taking away someone else's job, but what I told her was, I have a family. You're attacking my livelihood, basically saying I shouldn't be able to do my career, which is just insane based off of one movie anyway. So it was like, where's the line of sanity? Because I think you jumped over it, and it's this is the difference between reviewing a movie, whether you like it or not, and attacking someone personally. Is just I have no patience for that. So that was the only time I ever really flipped out. Now I say that I might have called friends or producers on Hunter's Moon or whatever and said, like, oh my god, this review was terrible, and not having them talk me off the ledge, but you let yourself, like I said, I have a small group of, and Daniel being one of them, a community of people that I trust emphatically and lean on, and vice versa. And sometimes when you do get those bumps or the negative side of things, you look to those people, because otherwise you might go crazy.
Yeah, I remember talking to another film director, and she had just released her debut film, and she was touring. She was going around promoting it and whatnot, and she had gotten a lot of awards for it. A couple of Director of the Year awards. I mean, her movie was very well received, and she actually got invited to speak out in Portland at a,
Oh,
at a showing of her film, and she was writing about how she was really upset that she went out there, and there's like two or three people after the movie was over, they came up to her and says, I just don't get your movie. I don't get it at all. What were you trying to do? Like they didn't like the movie. And I asked her, I said, well, how many people were there to watch the movie? She goes, like between 300 and 400 people. And I'm just sitting here looking at the screen. I'm going like, so honestly, what the hell are you worried about what 3 or 4 people have to say when there's, 297 or 397 that actually loved your movie?
yeah.
Why? I mean, why are you dwelling on the negative? I mean, and this thrive for the positive. It's so weird how that works. And I guess that's the question, is like, how do you handle a review, as a creator? I mean, how do you yourself handle it? I mean, I personally have seen it. I know how you handle it. You handle it with class and dignity. I mean, and honestly, I mean, everybody I've ever dealt with. I mean, maybe it's just the way I write. I'm not sure. I try very, very hard. I mean, not only to be honest, but to be, like I always try to look for the thin, because everybody in their chat here, they're all also reviewers. A lot of people review it in here, and they love horror and whatnot. So, I try to in my writing a review, because I'm not a professional reviewer. I'm not a journalist. I'm just one guy with one voice, and this is what I think. I don't have any pretense to being any more than that.
Right.
Um, I don't sit there and call myself a film journalist or a film critic or anything else. I'm just a reviewer. This is just my opinion about a film. But I always try to look for I always try to look for the good. I always try to
Yep.
find one thing in a good in a movie. Most of the time, I succeed.
Yep.
Sometimes I don't. There's two or three movies that I reviewed that I'll be honest with you. If the director walked in front of me, I would burn their movie in front of them because I was just that bad, and it offended me. Um, but other than that, um, I try to be I always look, like I said, look for the good part of a movie. So
Right.
how do you as a screenwriter? I mean, do you ever take anything what people write in the reviews? Do you ever take any of that? Do you let it influence your writing in the future, or you just put it in a different compartment?
One of the things I think it's being in the business, whether you're an actor, a writer, director, or whatever. There's already so much rejection, even to get something bought, made, whatever, get the part. So I think you're already kind of programmed a little bit, um, to see all this negativity. I've probably written between the ghostwriting jobs that I've done and the stuff that's actually, mine with my name on it, whether it's made or just sitting on the shelf. I've probably written 60, 70 scripts at this point in my life, maybe even more. Um, so I think there's a certain level of like, I know when I'm good, and I know when there's, I wrote my first novel. Actually, you brought up novels the other a little while ago. I actually just changed I took one of my screenplays that hasn't been produced, and I made it into a novel. And it was a new experience for me. It's a kind of a bucket list thing for me. And one of the things when I was done, I reached out to a bunch of people that I trust. I had no idea for the first time in over 20 years if what I had finished was any good at all. Like it was either garbage or okay or great. Had no idea, and that's not usually the case at this point with screenwriting because I've done it so many times. So there's a certain level of like, if someone doesn't like, before you get to a reviewer and the movie gets made, a lot of times if your script goes out to market to try and get bought, it goes into all these development executives, the gatekeepers, I guess, for lack of a better way, and they're readers. I mean, it's an entry level executive position where they read it. If they like it, whether they're a director of development or fill in the blank, whatever their title is, if they don't like it to get to the next level, the script dies right then and there. It's also like if you use these services, there's a lot of like screenwriting services where, whether it's the Blacklist or other ones, where you pay for someone to review basically your script and tear it up. And those positions I have a harder time with. I'll be honest with you, from an ego perspective, readers in those companies and the entry level positions in Hollywood, because there really is no qualifications. You could say like, oh, I've been a reader on someone's desk, so that's like that's how you get a position on the Blacklist reviewing stuff. Okay, but what does that mean? Have you ever written a script? Have you ever, how many scripts have you read? How many, there's a million different things where I'll put my own personal perspective. I've read probably thousands of screenplays. I've written, like I said, I've got to be coming close to 100 screenplays just of writing. And I wouldn't show you my early stuff because it was awful. But I would basically, anything that I write from here on in, I know there's some value to it. So getting to the place where you can accept this negativity, and we talked about this too with social media, I think all of the negative stuff is amplified more than the positive stuff. And you see that. So I think people are more prone, like the director that you had mentioned, she doesn't hear the 200 some odd positives because a lot of times those people are not vocal either. They enjoyed the movie, they go in the parking lot, they don't ask questions, whatever, they eat their popcorn, they go home, they're happy. They'll tell friends about it. But the people that want to say negative stuff are the ones that come to the forefront. And it's what you and I were talking about with social media. Everybody has a voice, and it's a lot of times, in my personal opinion, the people that should be talking the least or should be the most humble of the bunch are the ones that have the loudest mouths. And you just have to kind of realize that, you know for someone that's reviewing my movie, I always try and put it into context because you're reviewing it as a fan. You wanted to see the movie. You can't have a wrong opinion. It's subjective. I made the movie. It's done. How you interpreted it, that's how you interpret it. So I can't really hold on to that too much. And you had mentioned one of the reasons I think people respect you so much, Patrick, is because you are very real and you give your honest opinion. And that's really all that a reviewer or a fan or whatever can do, whether it's any kind of medium. But I think what I would encourage people that do review movies is to really kind of get an idea of how a movie's made, what different aspects of it, because you had mentioned this several times when we talked. There's sometimes a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and it's hard to pinpoint. I've seen reviews where people are like, "Oh, the writing's not very good." Did you read the script? That's one of the first things that I want to ask people when they're like, "I hate the writing in this movie." You don't know what the writing's like because
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
it's not the writing.
People have no idea. They see the name on the screen,
Yeah.
screenplay by. They have no idea that there could be a script doctor. They could go through, could be washed by two or three different writers. I mean, you get a
Yeah,
credit because it's your original idea,
right.
screenwriter by, but they don't understand that it goes through a lot of process before it actually gets before the camera.
Yeah, on that, and I've seen that even with big time writers. I mean, Joe Carnahan and I have talked on Twitter direct message a couple times. His original script. Sorry, Joe. I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but his original script for the Death Wish remake with Bruce Willis is one of the best action scripts I've ever read. It's phenomenal, and I think Joe was originally supposed to direct it, and just there was a disagreement between him and the studio or whatever. I don't know if it's around casting or what. I won't go down that rabbit hole. But he walked away, and then Eli Roth did the movie, and the movie is. I can see Joe's fingerprints a little bit, but it's like, oh my god, why didn't you guys just film Joe's script? It was like the first thing in my head, and it's like, I don't know who makes those decisions, whether it's Eli Roth or the studio or a little bit of both or the actors. I mean, even some of the negative stuff that was said about Hangman around the dialogue, I'm sitting there going, do you honestly think that I'm sitting on the side of this, filming and telling Al, no, Al, that's not, that's not what on the page, Al. Like he's gonna, gonna improv, he's gonna do whatever he wants, and I'm not. It's not my job to tell him otherwise. And I'm not saying that that's why I was negative. I'm just saying like the idea that basically people take a screenplay and they shoot it verbatim is just so inaccurate. It just doesn't work that way. Even with Hunter's Moon, for one of the first things I told the writers, I mean the actors, is I'm not married to every single word that's in the script. If it doesn't work, sometimes stuff works on the page, and you go to film it, it doesn't make sense, or it doesn't work as well, or a line doesn't fit, or it just seems out of place, and that's where the actor director collaboration comes in. So it's hard. I know I went on a massive tangent here, but basically to answer your question, anyone who's in the creative field for long enough is already kind of predisposed to negativity because in order to get greenlit or to get the part or to do get the financing for a movie, whatever it is, there's so many no's before you get that yes that you can't take everything personally, or you would, I don't know how you would exist. So I've had scripts go out, even Hangman. The story behind Hangman is that went out to probably 65 different producers and production companies, and everybody passed except for one. The very last person to respond was the one that ended up optioning it, and that was Arnold Rivkin. But we had all those no's and one yes, and all it takes is that one yes. Now it took 5 years from that yes for the movie to be made, which is the other thing that people don't kind of get. They see movies, and you and I talked about this yesterday. Now they're being shot so quickly, but the time between being script being bought, all the process, all that stuff, sometimes it's years. So this idea that I'm going to sell my script and I'm going to be rich, and
Right.
but it's such a weird process that I think a lot of people aren't privy to. So that's the only thing I would encourage, people that do reviews, and they, if they really want to get to that next level where the filmmakers can kind of really see what you're trying to do, is just kind of get an idea of how films are made. And I think that adds a different level to it. Not to tell people how to do their passion, but that would be the one thing from a filmmaker. I think that frustrates me more than anything else is when I'm getting attacked for something that I have zero control over, or even getting credit for something that I have no control over too. It goes both ways. So I try and be honest more than anything else. And sometimes it's probably to my own detriment, but that's how I'm wired. So I'm just going to tell it like it is, and hopefully people will like it or not. Is what it is.
Yeah, looking in the chat here, I want to read this to you. Chadwick mentions this is thank you for the inspiration, Michael. I'm working on two features right now.
Oh,
My first ones ever. Let's see, my first ones ever other than a few shorts that I've written. So he's working on his first two features after
great.
so he's getting some inspiration from you, and that's really part of that's really a nice thing to hear and to see,
Absolutely.
knowing that you're passing torch, like Stephen King influenced you, and he influenced me too. I read much too much King when I was younger too.
Yeah.
I mean I'm reading The Stand when I was 12 years old.
Wow.
Um, uh, uh, and so I get that. I mean, it's cool to know that your skill and your dedication is inspiration to others. Just the same as others were for you.
Sure.
Um, so so I know you did. I know you done. You did your first movie as far as the first major film goes. That was Hangman, right? Was Hangman that was your first major?
Yes, that was the first script that Charles Huttinger, my writing partner for Hangman, had. That's the first one that we sold. Our manager Christopher Sherman with Rooster Films sold that, and yeah, like I said, it was a long process, but that was the first feature film that we had written, or even by myself. But yeah, that's the first one that had gotten done.
So, so people who don't know, so how I mean, phew, I guess we'll have to go to basically tell you this, ask you to tell you the story about Hangman. I mean, it got sold. Lionsgate bought it. They bought they optioned it, right? Is that what the term optioned it?
No, it gets a little complicated. So Arnold Rifkin is an independent producer. He's been in the business he's a legend. At one point, he was head of William Morris. He discovered Bruce Willis, did like the original Die Hard, stuff like that. Him and Bruce actually had a production company for a while together. He had optioned it, and then Charles and I, originally Hangman was a found footage script. Actually, if you want to see how long that development process was, we had written it so that every single the Brittany Snow character was a cameraman, was a guy at one point. So every single time the camera would turn on, turn off, it was a really painstaking experience. And after we were done, Charles and I said, "Yeah, I'm never writing found footage again because to do it the way we wanted to do it was exhausting." But it had been in development for so long. We were going through rewrites with Arnold, and they were trying to get directors attached and actors and things like that. Found footage kind of came and went at that point. And then another company called Patriot Pictures actually, so Arnold had optioned it. Patriot Pictures actually bought it, and then they had gone out to a couple of different directors. And at one point, Charles and I were having conversations with Pete Travis, who did the Dread remake, among other things. Pete was going to direct it at one point. Who was the others? There was a couple others. There were a couple other directors that we had talked to that were going down the road to direct it. And for whatever reason it didn't. And then at some point, I don't know if Patriot lost interest in it or whatever, but there was this lull where nothing was happening. And I think I quit the restaurant, and Charles and I were going like, holy crap, like this is never going to get made, which is another story that a lot of people don't know is a lot of scripts get bought. Even these scripts that get bought for lots of money, and Hangman wasn't one of those big money sales, but a lot of scripts get bought and never get made. They just sit on a shelf, and I was really fortunate, even though the Hangman experience was very exhausting, very long, that the movie actually got made. So I'm very excited about that actually happened, because it's not always the case. Um, there was a lull, and I had watched a movie, and I want to give him credit because there was a film, and I think you actually like it, Patrick. It's called The Last Showing with Robert Englund, and there's a British director named Phil Hawkins, and I don't know where I had seen it. I'd seen it like on Twitter or something, and I was like, I went and bought the movie. I watched it, and I thought, it was simple but clean and clever and well done. And I'd never seen, Robert Englund gets stuck with this Freddy thing, like he's Freddy and everything. And I really saw a performance, and Robert's classically trained. I really saw a performance that I hadn't seen from Robert in years, and I thought, wow. So I had actually reached out to Arnold and the producer at Patriot, and said, "What do you think about this up and coming director, Phil Hawkins?" And they watched the movie, and Phil flew out, and Phil did some rewriting with Charles and I. He had an idea where he could kind of mesh the found footage with more of a traditional style because they wanted to go after some big name actors. And he's like, "There's no way these big actors." And again, found footage had kind of gone and went at that point. And then for whatever reason, and I don't know all the details, it's Phil and I became really close friends. I was kind of heartbroken that he didn't get to direct the movie. And the whys are, not really familiar with all the whys. That's more of a his story, anyways. But I was heartbroken because I thought Phil had a great idea, great concept. He was easy to work with. I loved his energy, and I think he's a fantastic director, and he's doing really well after this. But then they brought in Johnny, who was the director, who ended up being the director. And I remember thinking, well, rather than being like upset or whatever, let me reach out to Johnny and basically said, "Hey, Johnny, be 100% honest with you. We were excited that Phil was going to direct it. Heard that you're directing now. I don't know anything about you, but I'm here. You need anything from the writing side? Charles and I are here. We just want to make the best movie as possible, and feel free to reach out if you need anything." And Johnny and I have become close friends as well, and he did. He reached out, and there was a lot more rewrites, and Al got involved. So once Al got involved, things started to accelerate a little bit. But even then, there were some different rewrites and stuff went in different directions. And at one point, the chefs in the kitchen kind of situation, people wanted different story sides that it almost became a different movie. To the point, if I'm being brutally honest, where Charles and I basically called Arnold and said, "If you guys go shoot this movie, take our name off of it because this is not
Yeah.
it was that bad." And they didn't. Al's agent came back and said, "No, Al's not going to do it this way. Like let's get back on the page. Let's get back to where it's supposed to be." And then that process happened, and
Nice to have that. The Al that Michael's talking about is Al Pacino. So you can imagine what kind of weight that Al's voice had in helping you.
yeah,
And
and I had mentioned this to you as well. Al was so specific, and Johnny can attest to this too. Like his attention to detail. Johnny had mentioned. Johnny called me one day, and he was like, "Al wants to know uh, what's the backstory for the police officer that finds the first body that's hanging." And I said, "What?"
that's
He said,
amazing.
"Yeah." He said, "Yeah." Al reached out. He wants to know what her backstory is. Is this the first body she's ever seen? Like, and I just thought, Johnny, I have no clue. He's like, "Well, can you come up with a clue?" And I said, "Yeah, let me talk to Charles. Let's come up with something, and we'll give Al because Al wanted to embrace all that. I mean, that's how
Right.
dedicated he was. And it was one of those things where whether people love the movie, hate it, or they're indifferent or whatever, at the end of the day, Al Pacino basically took something that Charles and I wrote, and along with Carl and Brittany and all the other great actors that are involved, and Johnny did a great job, made it come to life. So yeah, it was amazing to sit and watch, and it was different than. And I've talked to Johnny about this. And I don't hide this at all. It's different than we had envisioned it as writers, the way it came out. We had seen it a little bit more darker, a little bit more Seven, and a little less actiony. Um, but Johnny has an action side to him, and that's his fingerprints, and I think that's that's another interesting thing about filmmaking, how who the director is can really kind of influence and change different things, and everything's a perfect storm. Um, who knows if this person didn't do this, if the movie doesn't get made or doesn't do this or whatever. But they were, it was the story that you saw. The Hangman is very different from the very first draft that Charles and I did to the very last draft. It's gotten to the place where Charles and I joke and say, if someone were to ask to read the Hangman script, I don't know what to send them because there's so many different versions of it, and even the one that they filmed was a little bit different than what we had written. So that's the experience. And like I said, it took about 5 years from when Arnold optioned it initially to it finally getting filmed. So it was a long time, and it didn't look like it was going to happen at one point. And that was probably more. That was one of the more heartbreaking moments. It was like having to come to the realization that maybe this thing never gets made.
Um, I'm just going to mention a couple of things here in the chat here. The chat is buzzing a little bit. Chadwick mentions says he has a writing meeting. Oh, he has to. Yeah. Oh, he has to go, but he wanted to sit there. He says this is listed as spirits. this interview has lifted his spirits. That's awesome. Thanks, Chadwick, and I look forward to seeing how your writing meeting goes.
Yeah, good luck in the
Yeah,
meeting.
Mr. Dan Hoare. I'm sorry. Mr. Dan Hoare says, "Great conversation. I need to see these films." Yes, you do. Definitely. Um, yeah, Hangman and Hunter's Moon are they are so cool. Definitely. Uh, I would, so what was it like meeting Al Pacino for the first time? I mean, you're talking like one of the legends here. He's the type of guy that you just like. I mean, I'm a pretty veteran myself. I had a background in music. I met a lot of music stars, so I'm sort of like I'm okay with meeting people. But I would be honest with you, I was like, I would be. I think I would definitely say I would be intimidated in meeting him.
There's nerves to it, but one of the things, and Charles might kill me for this, but Charles and I, we both have backgrounds in luxury hotel security. We both were security guards for a luxury hotel property, as well as Charles and I did Warner. That's where Charles and I met. We were doing security for Warner Brothers Studio, actually, as security guards. That's where Charles and I met. So when we did the security thing, I've met so many celebrities doing that, whether it was Bill Gates or Brad Pitt or the list goes on. Britney Spears. I mean, it goes. I mean, that's such a broad spectrum of people that are famous, athletes. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. These are all like these uber celebrity people that you just come in contact with. So I think that it kind of helped and prepared me a little bit. But one of the things that I thought, and I might have shared this with you yesterday, was I just had this concept of like treat Al as a creative. Don't treat him as a living legend, because that's not what he's. That doesn't serve the purpose. Like, he's here to make a movie. So if I'm sitting here, being starstruck, which
Yeah,
there's no way to avoid some of that, but like,
yeah,
how does that help the process if I'm just like, oh, you're my favorite actor? It's stupid, right? So it's also, I'm glad, I wasn't some 18-year-old kid either. I had, some life experience at that point too. So I think that helps as well. But yeah, it was surreal. I mean, he's such a gracious, intelligent, funny. He's one of the few. I want to say one of the few. Just meeting a lot of celebrities in the luxury property world. Some of them are disappointing, and some of them, you never have no idea what kind of day they're going through, and there's all that to take in. But I was one of the people that, you have high expectations. He went above and beyond those expectations, and I think part of it is just how gracious he is. And I think that's, you'd never know that he's had 50 years of film experience. I mean, he's just treats everybody, whether it's the person doing craft service, the writer, the director, everybody is treated with the utmost respect, and I think that's a testament to who he is as a human being. And I think that was pretty impressive and inspiring.
gives you a master class in how to treat people. After you told me the story yesterday about the him calling you back and wanting to know the background of the first officer, I couldn't help but think that because of that attention to detail, that role probably became a little bit more fleshed out. Probably had to go back there and write it just a little bit more for the character, and the actor who played the part probably got even if it's just a few more seconds of screen time, probably did get a few more seconds of screen time. It's just enhanced the role, which is basically just a small part. But because of that attention to detail, now the part becomes a little bit more intense, a little bit more important, and the actor benefits from that. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's exactly. I don't know if he sat there and thought like that, but the result is that.
yeah. I think it was more his process, his personal process of understanding and breaking down the actual story as a whole. But to your point, yeah, all of a sudden it gets everybody else, from the screenwriters to the director to the cinematographer, whatever, the actor that took the part. All of a sudden, yeah, everything is a little bit more. It just elevates everything. I mean, I think that's the part of
Exactly.
it. And then, the other, like we talked about yesterday, I think Brittany Snow steals the movie. Her performance is my favorite performance in the entire movie.
It was very good.
Yeah, and I think, and that was something that I didn't it's not that I didn't expect. I think she's a great actress. Out of the three roles, though, obviously at one point, like I said, it was found footage, so her character was always behind the camera. So she was able to create this interesting character, and she had her own thoughts, and really brought it to life. So it was really fun for me as a writer, and later on as a director, to kind of see again how someone can really own, and it's kind of what you're talking about right now. Even though that police officer that finds the first dead body, I don't even think that character has a line, but it just she still brings a life into it, that actress. And so Brittany was able to take what initially was probably the weakest part out of the three main actors, and really just hit a home run with it. I was just, and I never told her that, but I did tell her, her manager, who I've talked to for other reasons, for other movies and stuff, that I just loved what she was able to do with the part.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, have to go back and look at her resume or so, but I mean, I was a little surprised to see her name pop up in that, because I've always seen her as more of romantic comedies,
Yeah,
light comedies, something like a Pitch Perfect, which she starred in.
yeah.
Um, I never saw her as a in an action drama role, and yeah, she did really well. I mean, I expected that from Carl Urban. I mean, Carl Urban's the man. He's
Yeah.
he's just badass.
Yes.
Can't help but that. And then Al Pacino being Al Pacino, and then Sarah Shahi, from you know, I sort of like to see what Sarah Shahi could do with a romantic lead, because I'm always seeing her kicking ass.
Yeah, she does.
Person of interest, she's just like, all right, she's just a highlight. But it's
Yeah.
sort of fun to watch the casting, of people that you don't expect to be in that role. And you're right. I mean, she really was strong. I mean, um, now you're sitting on the screen, right? And you said you and Al collaborated a little bit, did a little bit of writing together, a little
Uh,
bit of scripting. I mean,
yeah, Alan had, Charles and I, he had obviously ideas and concepts and questions, and really just, it was never, it was a process. The thing that I mentioned to you yesterday was that last speech that he gives, when he's finally face to face, you know, the climax of the movie. Um, that was something that he had toiled over for so long, and every little word and all this stuff, and yeah, it's just, that was intimidating. Like, I just got done telling you earlier, like 20 minutes ago, that like the confidence level as a screenwriter, that was it was I was losing it a little bit, because I was like, oh my god, like, every single word, every single thing, to the point of, and he was always right, but he also didn't want to be, um, didn't want to just be right. So he wanted to be challenged as well. So I think there's something there to that as well. So yeah, there was that ability. It was unfortunate. Charles and I went out to Atlanta where they filmed it, and we didn't get to see him act, because he actually, he was sick for a few days, and the timing kind of sucked, because we were there. So we saw a bunch of other scenes, and we didn't get to see Al actually act. So
mm,
that was the downer side of it. But it was still really cool to come to set and meet every other actor, and see it filmed, and then getting to see, obviously see the finished product was a lot of fun. But yeah, we didn't get to see him do his craft, so I was a little bummed about that. But
now, now, where did you get the idea? Where did you get the buzz for directing? Where did you mean? Here you are, you're watching Johnny Martin work on the film and whatnot. I mean, when did you get the idea that you wanted to try your hand at directing?
I think a part of me always knew. So there's two parts to the story. I think actually the way that Hangman came about, with the different directors, and having Johnny come in, and then just seeing how much of a stamp a director can put on a script. Part of me was like, if I really want to continue to be a storyteller, um, I have I guess, the bandwidth or the desire to see it, not just, when you hand in your script and it gets bought, you have no rights to whatever, they can do whatever they want with it. Part of me is like, I can continue this. I can finish the script. I can actually direct it, and then it becomes really a Michael Caissie, uh, you know, film, not just a Michael Caissie script. So part of that, I think, came from Hangman, and like I said, nothing against Johnny or whatever. Like I said, we're friends, and I think the movie turned out great. It was just a matter of seeing how different it could come from the way that Charles and I had seen it versus the way he finished seeing it, and even the way that Phil saw it, and the way that everybody had a different view of it. I just thought that was really interesting. That, and then there's another filmmaker, Kirk W. Murray, who I had done some writing with at one point, and he was like, "Do you want to produce the script with me?" We'd worked on a script called Parallax, that Kirk, it's his passion, his baby. So he had said, "I want you to produce this movie with us. Let's see if we can do it together." And so we're kind of still doing that. But in this process, my manager at the time, and a great friend and like a brother to me, Christopher Sherman, basically said, "All the stuff that you're doing to try and get Kirk's movie off the ground, why don't you take everything that you're doing, still try and get Kirk's movie off the ground, but why don't you try and get one of your own movies off the ground? Why don't you try and direct? Is this what you want to do?" So I'll always be grateful for Chris for kind of, I guess, pushing me. So I'm grateful for all of these, for Johnny, for Kirk, inspiring me, and then Chris for pushing me and basically saying, like, so I hadn't talked to Arnold in a while. I took Arnold out to lunch or something, Arnold Rifkin, who produced Hangman. And at the lunch meeting, he said, "Do you still want to direct?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you have something that you've written that you can do for this budget, whatever the budget was?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "You've read it. It's this one." And he said, "Oh, okay, yeah, I remember that script." He's like, I have a producer that has some money that I think will do it. So we went down that path, and it turned out that didn't work out. So that was even that was Hunter's Moon. Hunter's Moon was a process all in itself. Originally, there was producers. Arnold had taken to some other producers and some financing, and we just kept going through, like, trying to attach actors, and finally we just kind of parted ways amicably, because I had done so much work. At that point, I started to reach out to certain actors on my own, Jay Moore and Amanda being the two primaries, who wanted to do the movie. And I was like, well, why don't I just try and produce this myself with Chris and with Arnold and with Clayton Turnage, who's my producing partner on a lot of stuff now. So we went and produced, which was originally The Orchard, Hunter's Moon. But again, that was another process that took years, between getting some financing, some independent financing, to what I shared with you yesterday, trying to get the film finished, because that backstory is a whole that's a whole other story of
When you mention financing, how does that work? Do you sit down and sit there and say, I need $5 million to do this movie? Do you how do you do that? Do you walk inside of a banker? Do you talk to banks, or do you talk to private investors? There's two different, isn't there two different ways or three different ways to get
yeah,
money?
just to keep it as simple as possible. Basically, a line producer will put together a budget, and that's every movie for the most part. And then, yeah, the two normal ways outside of the studio system to finance a movie would be equity, which would be private financing from whoever, fill in the blank. And then there's debt financing, which also can come from private parts, but the debt side of things is which we ultimately ended up finishing Hunter's Moon with. So we started with some equity. We had like, I can share that story if you want, but basically reshoot, recast, all this other stuff. And then we finished with some debt financing where we basically leveraged financially, future sales of the movie. So you can do that in a couple of different ways, but there's certain lending properties. Bonded Media was the one that we used. Luke and Matthew, great guys, basically loaned against the Lionsgate. Grindstone-Lionsgate basically said, "We're going to give you X amount of dollars guaranteed for your domestic sales of the movie ahead of time." Not ahead of time, but like there's an agreement to it. So then the bonded, however they finance their money, or whatever their financial structure is, basically they give us a loan based off of that piece of paper. So we use that, plus we shot in Kentucky in the first part of the film. Kentucky offers a tax incentive, which we applied for, and so they also give you a piece of paper that says, you'll get X amount of dollars when the film is finished and your taxes are filed, all that stuff. Bonded loaned against that as well. And then the last piece of the puzzle is the foreign side of things, and we partnered up with Blyberg, who also basically did what Grindstone did and said, this is the minimum guarantee that we'll give you. We'll give this paper that basically says, worst case scenario, this is the amount of money that we're going to give you for the rights to have the film. And so Bonded loaned against those three pieces. So equity is one part. That's the first part. That's the one that has the least strings attached in terms of like, when you do these pre-sales and you do minimum guarantees, you're kind of selling. We'll never see another dollar over those minimum guarantees. So you're basically, and if you're leveraging it just to get the movie made, it's not a financial endeavor in terms of like, I'm not going to ever get rich off of Hunter's Moon. Like I told you the other day, like we're still paying out of pocket for certain things that we have to take care of. So that's the challenge for independent filmmakers is how do you finance these movies? Because you have to have relationships. There aren't people, a lot of movies are losing money or they're breaking even. And once that happens, those people that invest in movies, one of the worst things for me is having these equity partners who basically put their faith in me in the film, giving me cash that, I can't necessarily get back to them at the moment. So it's like one of these things where it's a sunk cost and I also can't go back to them now and say, hey, I'm doing another movie. Can you cough up more cash? Because I didn't get to return their first.
Right.
So there's a lot of pressure that happens with that. And if you do, and knowing what I know now, I think Hunter's Moon could have been more profitable, but we kind of ran into a buzzsaw, and we had to reshoot, and we had to recast, and we basically reshot the entire movie in over 9 days in Los Angeles. And in order to get that done, we had to sell all future sales pretty much ahead of time at a the reason they do that is they're getting you at a bargain price, so they're not going to.
So you had to undersell it just to get the money so you could finish the film.
Just so I could finish it, exactly. So, and it's also like because we had already started to shoot and we did a recast, they almost see it like a sinking ship, I guess, as a good analogy for it. So it's like a damaged property. So they're not going to go give you X amount of money, extra money, because they see that you're in trouble, and it's to get the film made. That certainly doesn't help me on the negotiating side of things.
Right. So they basically take advantage of your misfortune to undercut.
I wouldn't say take advantage. It's more of it's smart business. I would do it if I was in their case as well. So it's like they have to protect their assets just as much as anyone else. So it's just there's no leverage as a filmmaker in that case. So starting from the beginning, had we not had to recast and reshoot, we shot all of Hunter's Moon all in for about $900,000. So it's not, to give you kind of a perspective, Hangman was $10 to $12 million movie. So Hunter's Moon is about 900,000, with a good chunk of that going to our actors. So just to give you an idea of the difference in budgets and time and what you're able to do with that. It's a big difference. $900,000 sounds like a lot, but it's not.
Yeah, I thought for the budget for Hunter's Moon, I thought you guys did a great job. I did. I thought, for what you said, what you did, what you had to overcome too, and it makes it even more impressive. How much value? How much easier is it to actually? Is it easier to get money for your project? Is it easier to get money before you cast or after you cast? What do they call it? Attached. So and so's attached. Does that help you gain money? I got Al Pacino attached to Hangman. Okay, I'm going to give you $5 million. Whereas you said I got Brittany Snow attached to it, they might give you $1 million because of the name value, because of how much money they could sell the movie rights for.
Yeah, that's basically how all of that minimum guarantee and all of when you start dealing with distributors, both domestic and foreign, they base it all off of the actors. Unless you're Tarantino or Spielberg or whatever, that your name above the movie is going to sell, my name means nothing in the foreign market or the domestic market as a writer or director. But Thomas Jane, for example, we wouldn't have gotten the deal with Lionsgate and Grindstone-Lionsgate. Grindstone is the people we had to deal with, and their deal is with Lionsgate. So just when I say Grindstone-Lionsgate, they're interchangeable by my thing, but they're two different companies. Grindstone wouldn't have given us that minimum guarantee had we not had Thomas Jane attached, and and Bonded wouldn't have financed against all the pieces of paper had we not had Thomas Jane attached. And the foreign side of things, the same thing. So Thomas Jane was really the name that moved the needle in terms of being able to finish the film. So he was like the fish that we had to kind of catch to finish it that way. To answer your question, in a perfect world, one of the things that came out of Hunter's Moon for myself was, as much as I loved that it was a female empowerment movie, and this is something that I would love to change from within is in the film business. You just mentioned it. Male actors have more value than female actors, and I hate that. A lot of that, I think you can attribute, especially on the foreign side, and how men and women are seen in different cultures. Obviously, that's a part of it. But even domestically, I don't know how to describe this, but like, okay, actors that are males have more financial value to these distributors than amazing female actors, just because they're female. I can't stand that. But being that I'm still from the outside trying to work my way in, the next movie that I wanted to do, I went through all my scripts and basically said, I need to find ones that have a male actor or two, preferably in the 30 to 50-year-old range, so that I can go and then try and target those actors to try and get them attached, because that's the only way that I know how to finance movies moving forward, is by getting actors attached, and then having deals with distributors and foreign sales and pre-sales. Basically what they'll do is they'll go to like Cannes and all those other places, and they'll sell the movie, like just like you said, ahead of time. Like AFM, before Hangman was filmed, or maybe it was after, there was in the AFM lobby down in Santa Monica was this huge picture of Al Pacino's face with Hangman and stuff. So that's where they went and they sold all the foreign side of things for Hangman. So and that's I think we touched on this a little bit earlier. That's the part of the exhausting part of filmmaking. All of these other, it's all this stuff to get to before you can do the creative side of things. It can be very taxing and very draining. It's also like, if you don't know, it's navigating these waters. And we did this with Hunter's Moon. A lot of this was a learning experience for us, because none of us, outside of Arnold, obviously, had really done what we were trying to do. Other filmmakers obviously have done it, and they've mastered it, and I've now done research and try and copy and figure out how they do certain things. But we were really kind of green, and I think we jumped first and then asked questions later, which in hindsight, now again, knowing it's like anything in life. Had I known now at the beginning what I know, I would have done things a little bit differently.
Well, but now you have that. So now you took all your lessons applied from
Right.
Hunter's Moon, and now you apply them to No Tears in Hell. Okay, so I want to know. There's one question I want to know: how did you end up meeting Daniel Hill, Cheetah?
Cheetah, yeah, Daniel Hill, Cheetah. Christopher Sherman, who was Charles and I's manager, also produced Hunter's Moon with us. When we knew that we were going to shoot in Kentucky, Chris reached out to, I don't know if it was casting out there or one of the colleges. I'm not 100% sure the story, but Chris basically found Daniel and sent me this. I think it was a clip of Daniel, video or something, or a picture. I don't remember what it was, and I was like, "Oh my God, he's amazing!" And then I started to see his resume and his being classically trained and all the experience that he had. And then we set up a Skype call or a Zoom or whatever, maybe it was Skype at that time, and just hit it off. I mean, he's an amazing human being, as you know, preaching to the choir. But
yeah, definitely one of my favorite people I've met doing this.
Yeah, and I said, Daniel, I mean, I think your resume is, your skill set, everything that you've learned. This part has no dialogue. Yeah, how do you feel about that? And he's like, I love the challenge. I think it's great. I love the part. I love the script. And so we really, I tip my hat to Christopher Sherman, because he was able to find Daniel, and then, as they say, the rest is history. Because then Daniel and I have kind of become really great friends, and Daniel's one of the people that I sent my novel to, because I was like, Daniel, I know you'll give it to me straight. Is this good? Is it, what is it? It's rough. I need to get it edited and stuff like that. But I trust your opinion as a creative individual. Let me know your thoughts. So
That's funny you mentioned it, because when I watched Hunter's Moon, that was like one of my biggest. I was sitting there going like, oh my God, they took the best actor and they give him any words. I'm like, oh, because I just come off watching him in Rust Creek. And he
Yeah.
was strong in Rust Creek. I'm sitting there going, yeah, because I was pumped, because I didn't, I was like, oh, Daniel Hill's in this? Well,
Yeah.
I told him, I says, I saw you in Hunter's Moon. He says, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. And I'm like, because he had shot it a while ago. He says,
Yeah.
So I was like, all right. And so then I watched it, and then he had no words, and I'm sitting there going like, but there's no words. There's like,
Yeah.
but that was then. Now I understand how it worked. Um, now so go ahead. I mean, you sent Daniel your novel. Then I mean, that's a true sign of trust.
Yeah, as far as I know, I don't think he's read it yet. I just is recent, just the
Oh,
last
he's
couple.
a busy man.
Yeah,
He's
no, I know he's auditioning like a madman and getting callbacks and stuff. So it's I'm excited
all
to see.
right. You know what? We walked into let me know too if I'm overrunning, keeping you for something. But I'm really enjoying this. This is
Yeah, but
I always enjoy this so much.
thanks, man.
Um, One question for you as a director.
Yeah,
Now you're a director, and we talked about this during Daniel's interview. But um, what do you prefer as a director? I mean, you're doing casting. Do you prefer to see your actors in person? Doing lines. Or are you? What do you feel about self taping? Would you rather see live audition, or would you like to see a self tape, and why?
it's been years since I've seen like a live audition, and that was more for like shorts and things like that. Everything that I saw, I didn't audition for Hunter's Moon. Did we audition? I didn't audition anybody. Um, Most of the actors in Hunter's Moon are established actors, and I was like, this is my first film. Why would I like? I'm going to ask someone to put themselves on tape. It seems insane. But for No Tears in Hell, which I didn't produce. I wrote and directed it. There's producers that took care of all of that business side of things that I was just griping about. I didn't have
Right.
to do any of that, which was thankful. Like basically, they said, "We're financing the movie. Here's you're going to shoot it. Blah blah blah. We bought the script. Go shoot the movie." So I was grateful for that. That cast was interesting because the financiers basically cast the two leads in No Tears in Hell and did a fantastic job with Luke Baines and Gwen Van Dam. Everybody else, we had a great casting director, uh, Debbie Sheridan. She had everybody self tape, and I
Okay.
was watching all these self tapes, and I said, and I'll do this a lot as a director. Basically everyone comes to the director and says, what's your opinion on this? What's your opinion on this? And that's the job, right? But I'm also smart enough to know certain things I don't have. I wouldn't say they're not strengths. I just the way my mind works. Like a prime example is like wardrobe for me. A lot of times the wardrobe person will say, "What do you think about this?" And unless it's like something completely off, usually I'm going, hey, this is your expertise. As long as it fits within the confines of this thing, I trust you. And then the other option is like go talk to the DP, make sure that the colors don't clash with where we're filming. That's the two things. But with Debbie, I kept saying like, well, who do you like? Who do you like? Who do you like? And the people that she had kind of put to the top, I was watching and I go, God. And we really, and I, immediately after we finished, I think she was probably the first person I texted it, maybe after the financiers, saying like we just wrapped, wanted to thank you for all of the great casting you did because all this, I don't want to say small roles, but all of the day players or like the little pieces in No Tears in Hell, every single actor that we had, I was really impressed with. And you could see that in the self tape a little bit. But it's really, for me, it's less about the audition versus having conversations with the actors prior to filming is my preferred um, way to do things. Like for Katrina, for Hunter's Moon, for example, I went and met Katrina for coffee. I had a Skype call with India, a Skype call with Daniel, phone call with Thomas Jane. Jay Moore and I had a gazillion phone calls. Amanda had a gazillion phone calls. Just getting to know the person prior to filming and basically talking to them about, how do you like to be directed in terms of what is your style? How can I help you get the best performance? And being flexible in that aspect. So
Mm.
for me, the audition thing, I don't understand it. And I say this to the actors all the time. I hate the audition process for the actors because I think it's a really unfair way to really judge an actor's performance because there's some actors that are really great at auditioning and aren't the strongest actors, and then there's some amazing actors who just don't necessarily audition well. It's
Yeah.
like it's like being smart in school and then not really testing well. Sometimes those things don't line up. You can be a really intelligent human being, but when it comes time to sit down and take a test, sometimes it just doesn't fit. It's very similar with auditioning, and I don't know. The thing is, I don't know what the alternative is, and that's what I tell actors. Like, this is literally the only way that makes sense from time wise, especially when you have to go through so many videos and watch all this stuff. I wish there was a better way to do it. Part of it for me is like once I work with an actor, I like to try and work with that actor again because we've built that trust, and especially the way that I work. If the trust is on both sides, that makes it a lot easier. So as I'm even as I'm writing during the pandemic, I wrote a TV show. I basically wrote every part for an actor that I have worked with in some capacity or another, so that the part was written for that actor. Now I don't have that TV show financed yet, but the parts are, I would then send the scripts to those actors. Daniel being one of them, going like, "Hey, here's the next, here's episode 4, here's episode 5," and getting feedback from them because I was literally wrapping stories around actors and knowing what their skill sets were, and it was kind of an interesting way to do building it, that way up because you don't always have that benefit. So it was a different experience for that, but no tears. Yeah, a lot of video, a lot of videos. After a while, you start to go like, I can't see the difference, or personal choice, or it gets kind of, or it's like scheduling too. We liked one person, and the schedule couldn't work. That happens a lot too. So,
Your friend Sean's here. Uh,
so Sean,
yeah, he just mentioned that he's halfway done with your novel and he's loving it.
thanks, Sean. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's my best friend back in Massachusetts. Thanks, Sean.
Nice. Nice. Thanks for supporting the interview, Sean. Appreciate that. Uh, okay, so now we're on 100th Moon. Now it's your first directing job. Um, so I mean, you had the recasting. Basically, it was, could you safely describe it as sort of like a shoot from hell, or was it more of a just run and gun learning experience? I mean, what are two things that you liked about the process or the experience, and what are two things that you would have changed if you could have?
Uh, let's start with what I would have changed. I mean, we basically had to recast the sheriff role that Thomas Jane ended up taking. So we went to Kentucky. We shot, I think, for 6 days, and anything that the sheriff was in, we couldn't use. We had to recast the sheriff. So the project basically got sat on the shelf for a little while because we needed to recast and uh, get some additional financing to finish. And so part of that recast was, without getting into details, I think we really benefited getting Thomas Jane for the sheriff, but I also really liked the original sheriff as well. So it was an unfortunate thing. But what came out of that was, because we had to reshoot so much stuff, and I shared this with you yesterday, peeling back the curtain, basically in the movie, we use two different houses. So like one is an old rundown Kentucky house, which is everything in the back of the building, and on the side of the building with all the woods and stuff like that. That was all Kentucky, shot in I want to say 2017. Anything in the front of the building was Los Angeles, 2019. So all that stuff that you see that happens in the back where the kids are coming out of the barn, all that was Kentucky.
Right.
There was certain stuff that we had to even change the story because there was a really great shot. So we had two DPs. Ed Lucas was the first DP for Kentucky. It was a fantastic shot in the script. Lenny siphons gas from the car, and basically that's what they're going to use. While he was siphoning, there was noises in the woods, and there was a movie shot where the thing was running right towards him, and it was really dynamic and really cool and very genre. I couldn't use it because at the end of it, basically Spencer Daniels, who plays Lenny, backs up and the sheriff is there, and he bumps into him, and it was the old sheriff, and I wasn't going back to Kentucky. I couldn't do it even if I wanted to go shoot the rest of that. So we had to kind of start compartmentalizing all these pieces of like, this will be from Kentucky, this will be from LA. So
Yeah.
obviously, in a perfect world, I'd like to just shoot once and get it done and not have to do that. That would be the big takeaway for me. What I did like, though, it was kind of a blessing in disguise because there was a 2-year gap from when we started and then when we finished. All of the cast, particularly Jay and Amanda, and the girls, Emily, India, and Katrina, they stayed in touch with each other,
Oh,
and
wow.
they became friends. Yeah, maybe I'm overstating this a little bit, but like they, it gave more of a. I felt like when we went back to film, there was like a relationship that felt more sisterly. It felt more marriage between Jay and Amanda, there was a comfort. It's almost like we were able to put pause in the filming and then let the real world kind of gel and mesh, and they talk and all that stuff. So I felt we benefited performance wise by having that space, if that makes sense. So that's one takeaway of a good thing. And then yeah, I think it's just like I told you yesterday. I'm just proud that we were able to finish because I wasn't able to finish with Ed Lucas's DP. Ben Cuffrin, who's another great DP, was the one that finished. And when I talked to Ed, who had a scheduling conflict, I was really upset that he wasn't able to finish. But he said, something I'm paraphrasing, but like I'm really proud and impressed that you're finishing, because usually when this kind of stuff happens, these films don't finish. And I thought, if I couldn't finish my first film, my directing career is dead in the water.
Right.
A perfect film? No, of course it's not. But like, you don't get to put an asterisk on the DVD cover and say these are all the problems we had, because no one cares. Like, and they shouldn't. That's not part of the experience.
See,
But
I have to say, as a fan, not as a reviewer or anything else, but as a fan, and I think people in the chat would agree with this. It's so helpful hearing this side of the story, because when you watch a film, like I watch films a lot differently now, because now I look, now I can understand when something doesn't necessarily go right.
hmm,
I understand that. Like the one casting of the one actor we'd mentioned before yesterday, who he couldn't finish his role, and
yeah,
in the movie you could definitely see that it wasn't him,
yeah,
but now you find out why. It's just like, why do they do that? And well, now and it's like, okay, that happens.
yeah.
I watched another movie where it was totally edited by two different people. You could
Wow.
definitely tell it was edited by two different people, and you're sitting there going like, I'm going like, you watch it, and you go like, what happened? And then you go and you sit there and say, is that normal? And then you find out that no, that's not normal. So now you understand the process. Like, okay, something must have happened. Whatnot. It's not because the movie's bad. It's because there's circumstances beyond control, and they're doing the best they can to actually make it work. And so
Yeah.
it comes off with a little bit more understanding about the film. I just one thing, I'm going to mention this too. I just want to mention this too. I appreciate the fact that you used someone like Amanda and wrote her a solid part. I mean, to me she stole Hunter's Moon.
Oh, I
She was
agree. Yeah, yeah,
she was easily the best part about the film. She was so badass, and
yeah.
it was so awesome to see her actually have a part where she could actually sink her teeth into.
Yeah.
As a horror fan, as a movie fan, and a Amanda Weiss fan, I appreciated that, because you don't get to see actresses like her get those kind of parts now. Most of the time, they get written for a little tiny little scene, and that's it. They're out of there, and it's frustrating, because it's like, I really, that's one of the reasons why I bought the movie,
Yeah.
because she was in it. Um, so I thought I thought her part was very important, and as a fan, I was really happy to see her have a big a lead role.
As was
Uh,
as was I, and she was a pleasure to work with and super
yeah,
good. And yeah, her and I talk once in a while too. And I actually tried to get her to do No Tears in Hell, and it couldn't make it work. But going back to, yeah, once I find someone that I trust, or that I appreciate as an actor or actress, I want to keep working with them. Daniel,
right.
obviously, the other one. So it's
You want to form your own like stock company.
exactly. Well, I did use when we shot Purgatory, the TV show that I did in Armenia. Tatiana was one of the leads. I used her in No Tears in Hell, and I was so excited to work with her again. And I knew the part was right for her and all that stuff. So it does, sometimes it does line up and it does work well. And I think that's the thing. But yeah, I'm with you. Honestly, I wish they had pushed Amanda for marketing purposes a lot more, because she's the genre piece in that movie. Um, Not to pigeonhole her as a genre actress, because clearly she's had a great career with all different kinds of genres. But she does all those horror cons. She does all of those pieces where she goes and talks about her movies, whether it's Nightmare on Elm Street or all the other movies that she's done. And I felt like that was a window that wasn't taken advantage of. Even with her name, going on the cover, I would have personally done that kind of stuff. So it goes back to what we talked about though, where they wanted to put certain names on the cover and for marketing, whatever. And as a even as a filmmaker, there's certain things that you don't have control over. So those are the things where when they were doing write ups for the pieces, what I always made sure like, hey, list all the actors because the cast isn't huge. That's the other thing. It's like
Yeah.
when you do a release, put all the actors because then they've all worked hard. They all did a great job. They all have their friends and family and all that stuff, and it just percolates and just makes sense to just put it to one. I never understood that, but that's again not my job,
Mhm.
so I don't know. Maybe there's things that I don't know, but that's my 2 cents. But I agree with you. I think Amanda did a fantastic job, and her stuff with probably one of actually my favorite scene in the entire movie is the scene with her and Will, who played Billy at the end in the car.
Yeah.
The last little kind of reveal thing was my favorite part of the entire movie, and I think both her and Will did a fantastic job in that scene. I just love it. I think she did a great job.
We've been having such a great time. I'm really see it's running. I want to give a chance for people in the chat, the
Sure.
folks that are here with us. I want to give them a chance to actually talk a little bit if they have any questions or whatnot for Michael. I want to give you guys have a chance to ask questions. I know that Chadwick will probably ask a lot of questions since he's in the business. So if you guys have some questions, please throw them up in the chat and we'll feed them along to Michael. Now, the werewolf movie, I mean, you actually created a rarity because a lot of people here are talking werewolf movies and they're always talking about American Werewolf in London, the werewolf, the one with Benicio del Toro, the Wolf Man and whatnot. You have actually created something really, really unique, and that is a werewolf movie with a happy ending. I mean, that is, yeah, people mention Teen Wolf and Teen Wolf 2, but those are comedies. Those are broad comedies. I'm talking about in the horror films, you've actually created something that's really unique that I personally don't know if anybody's ever done it. Has created a werewolf movie with a happy ending. That's amazing to me. That's what I mean. It's like, how did you come up with that? I mean, were you a werewolf fan before? I mean, did you watch different films? Were the creatures, the werewolf creatures, like one of your favorite characters? In horror or?
I think out of all the classic, Frankenstein, vampire, Dracula, werewolf's up there. I had done prior to after Hangman and prior to Hunter's Moon getting where it went. I'd written a script. It was originally called Unsourced, and it was vampire based. But I did very similar to Hunter's Moon, where I did some kind of spins on it and flipped some things on its head. That actually got made into a movie by a fantastic director named Rigo down in Mexico, who did a movie called KM31. If anyone hasn't seen KM31, it's a fantastic Mexican horror movie. Highly recommend it. Rigo is a ridiculously talented director. So Sin Origin, it became Sin Origin. It came out a couple months ago. Is that the Cheetah?
No, this is the Cheetah.
That's the Cheetah. So Sin Origin was the vampire one. Hunter's Moon became the werewolf one. So I kind of was just picking these classic horror icons and kind of putting my own spin on them. So that was just the natural trajectory, I guess. So it went from vampire to werewolf. And like I said to you yesterday, I wanted to show the familiarity of the creatures or the lore, if you will, and have my own spin to it. So that's where that both of those, Sin Origin and Hunter's Moon, play into that, if you will.
Hey Tim, our friend Tim Hayes is in the house here. Yeah, he's sitting there going, a werewolf movie with a happy ending. Yep, that's a pretty rare animal. You don't see that very often. I've seen Frankenstein end up with a happy ending. Well, at least with the ending where he got a purpose in life. But I mean, as far as a vampire, yeah, there's been vampires that made it. I've seen that,
Yeah, Patrick, watch Sin Origin. It's in Spanish, but watch Sin Origin. It has a happy ending, and it's a vampire.
Okay, I was thinking the show Angel.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
yeah. I mean that he had the vampire was a soul. I mean, he survived the series. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's true. Yeah.
uh, the werewolf the costume itself, could you talk a little bit about that real quick? And then I want to talk about the two TV shows. While I already know we're going to be doing this again.
Yeah,
When No Tears in Hell's come out, we're going to be doing this again because I have so much more to ask you, and I'm running out of time. And I don't want to keep you. I want to. So, but could you
yeah.
talk about the werewolf costume, or was that like practical, or was that mechanical, or because
Oh,
that was just amazing, and I wish you would have been
yeah.
on screen more.
Yeah, I owe Vincent a beer now after you said that. So Vincent was the creator of the werewolf, him and his team. So Vincent is a ridiculously talented practical effects guy. He did. Do you remember the movie Dogma for Kevin Smith?
Sure. Yeah.
He did the wings for Matt and Ben. Vincent created those. He also did stuff for Requiem for a Dream, some of the sculptings and things like that. So he's done a lot of amazing things. A brilliant guy at it, originally from Jersey. The reason I owe him a beer is because he kept saying to me, Mike, I feel like you're not putting enough werewolf in this movie. The fanboys are gonna hate you for this. And I said, well, Vincent, I'm a fanboy first and foremost. This is a werewolf movie, but it's not. I don't want to. I want to go the Jaws approach. So I want the reveal to be the reveal at the end, and then everything else you see, you don't see up until that. So it wasn't that choice was not to not show it was not financially dictated. That's how it is in the script. That's how it was from the get go. But Vincent created this fully practical werewolf suit. There's a
Oh,
stuntman inside of it named Lucky to make it as monstrous and height wise. Lucky's actually walking on stilts. So inside the werewolf suit, he's on stilts. So in the middle of in the dark with all that haze and everything like that, there's a stuntman who can barely see through this amazing thing that Vincent had created. Um, and all of that stuff, the jaws, mechanical, the finger, everything Vincent did. So it's a fantastic job that he did that. And it's one of the things that I've seen reviews where people don't like the werewolf, and I'm like,
oh
guys are
my.
you guys
Well,
are
they must be
fine.
blind.
I showed
Yeah.
my I showed my kids the werewolf, and they were like enamored with it
Yeah.
because it looks. I mean, being face to face with it, it looks real. It was really cool, and I was really fortunate to have Vincent and Lucky do it because I thought it was great. And there's a great story from the film that I didn't know at the time of filming. I went up to Jay Moore after, at the end, where they have this confrontation. And I said, "Man, Jay, you did a great job. Thanks for bringing in that scene." And there's more to the story. I basically yelled at Jay prior to that, like an ass. It's a long story, but so I felt like, oh man, I went too far. So let me go tell him. And he did a fantastic job. I was like, you look like you were scared out of your mind. He goes, Mike, I wasn't acting. Basically, before they started rolling, they went up to me and they said, he can't see where his feet land. If he steps on your foot, he's going to break your foot. So you need to be aware of where your feet are up against this car. And so
To
Jay said, I wasn't acting. When he came up to me face to face, all I could think of was like, please don't break my feet. And I thought, oh, like crap. I didn't. And this is things, as a director, it's funny because you think like directors know everything. I didn't know this at the time of filming, and I was, everything was so hurry, and I was very aware. Growing up in Massachusetts, my father and my brother still does this. They're tapers by trade, um, taping for walls and stuff for construction. And the cheap way to do some of the taping up in the higher echelons of buildings and stuff like that is to walk on stilts, and you're not supposed to in terms of safety and stuff like that. So even when I was in college working with my dad, my brother and I would be walking on these stilts, doing the taping up, way up in the sky. And it was really kind of freaky. So I was aware of how hard it is to walk on stilts on concrete floor. Here's a guy who's doing it in this like mucky, dirty, muddy, whatever. And I'm thinking, so I was my mind was very like, let's get what we need to get so that Lucky doesn't fall over, doesn't, he was almost 9 feet tall once he was standing on those things. So it was like for safety reasons, I was aware of this also just out of a courtesy because he would like try and lean against the car in between takes. And I yelled at Jay because I felt like they weren't like dialed in enough, and I was trying to say like, guys, this guy's been the stuntman been in the suit for like hours at this point. We got to get this. Like, what are you doing? Come on. So that was that was that. But yeah, it was. I was really excited about Vincent, and true to any creative person, Vincent was. He was like, oh, I wish I did this different or whatever. And I said, Vincent, come on, man, it looks great. But the beer was like, I said, I'll buy you a beer. You buy me a beer if the fanboys are mad that there's not enough werewolf. And he said, you're going to end up buying me a beer. And I kind of, part of me was like, he's probably right. But that's not the story I wanted to tell. And again, it wasn't for budgetary reasons. That's in the script. That's how it was. So it wasn't supposed to be this big, he's like, we could do some transformation stuff. I was like, Vincent, I don't want to do any of that stuff. I don't want to do, it's not American Werewolf. As much as I love those films, this is more of a character piece with werewolf elements to it. And it's, for me, it's more about the actors. It could be really cool.
I felt it more. It was more. It did come across more almost like an origin story.
Yeah.
I mean, you could definitely feel it had the feel to it. I'm not sure if he wrote it that way or not, but it definitely had a feel to it. Like this is the first of a story, and we're gonna see more of it going on.
Yeah, I had this idea because it's set up for a sequel. But also when I did Sin Origin, the vampire one, part of me was like, all right, I have my vampire one, I have my werewolf one, so I have this story in my mind to put the surviving members of Hunter's Moon with the surviving members of Sin Origin and do a zombie movie and combine the two, and then that'll be the part of the trilogy. So I don't know as far as rights and stuff like that. I don't know if I own the rights to my characters anymore. I don't know. I'd have to look into that. But part of me in my head has always thought combining these three, subgenres of the horror genre and using my characters from these ones and meshing them together, and it would really work out really well, especially because Sin Origin, it's in Spanish. So if they were to meet in like a zombie apocalypse, there'd be a language barrier, but they're in both sides. I don't want to read. Watch Sin Origin, and then you and I can have a conversation. But I don't want to ruin Sin Origin before you see it. But you'll see how those two stories kind of lend themselves to a trilogy combining with zombies. Which, whether I ever do it or not, it's another question. But that thought was always there.
We do have a question. Chadwick, I knew he would. Chadwick mentions, have you ever raised the money on your own, or our producers greenlight you on your projects? He answered half that question probably when you were gone. But the other part, that's a good question, especially since you're doing short films. If you've done a short film, have you raised your own money to do a short film, your own projects?
Yes and yes. So short films, I use my own money. My short films are not anything to view. They were, learning and and figuring out how to do things and not do things. But for Hunter's Moon, it was partially we went and found we produced Hunter's Moon, so we found all the financing for Hunter's Moon, whether it was debt or equity raised from private people, came from myself and the other producers going and getting that. So we had a couple of private investors who brought some money in, and then we went and we sold the rights, both foreign and domestic, as well as the tax incentive, and then loaned against that. So there was some equity money, and then there was some debt. As far as shorts, the shorts medium is, it's really interesting to me because I've gone to film festivals where I see these shorts that are like, the budget has to be $100,000. I'm like, I don't know how someone got $100,000 to do a short for an 8-minute short, and they look amazing. But you should, if you have an 8-minute short for $100,000, it should be pretty dynamic, right? So I don't know if it's a level playing field in terms of shorts with film festivals. It's one of these weird things, just the idea of the best advice I can give for people doing anything, shorts or whatever. For me, as a filmmaker, the most important pieces, and not in any particular order, but it obviously starts with a great script. I think it's really hard to make a great anything with a bad script. So you can make a bad movie with a great script, but it'd be very hard to make a great movie with a bad script. So starting with a great script first, and then the key pieces obviously are casting. Great actors make or break movies, obviously. And then for me, on a personal level, because I'm not a very technical director, I understand lenses and things like that, but I'm not going to. If you had me put together a camera and all that stuff, we're doomed. I'm not doing any of that stuff. Lighting, I know, I understand the concept, but I'm not lighting a shot. That's not my wheelhouse, nor do I want it to be. So a DP, a great DP. So again, great script, great cast, great DP, and then the last part of it is, and I apologize for all the other parts. I'm not trying to glare over it or whatever, but a great editor. And inside of that editing, I think music, obviously, for the composer plays a key part. So I'll add composer as well. So those are the ones where, in my personal experience, and I kind of knew this going in, also I'm pretty self-aware of what I'm good at and what I'm not. So I know that if I need a great DP, and I've been very fortunate on everything that I've worked on to have great DPs. And then in editing, I've seen some of the stuff that I think things that I've enjoyed or not enjoyed or whatever. I think an editor can make or break a film as well. So those are the dynamic pieces for me. And I think you could do the same thing with a short. I mean, you can call in favors and not have a big budget short if you have a great DP, great actors, great editor, and great music. Now it gets hard. It gets hard to do that because all those people have to get paid, and in order to get a great DP, you can shoot on iPhones. I mean, I've seen it, and I've seen it done well. Actually, I think Patrick, the movie I was telling you about that Luke Baines did, Untitled Horror Show, Untitled Horror Movie, they did during the pandemic with iPhones. All the actors filmed their own stuff, and it's great. I highly recommend anyone that wants to see. Luke Baines is the star of my next movie, No Tears in Hell. He wrote or co-wrote, acted in, and produced Untitled Horror Movie, which is available. I think it's on Amazon now, but they did that with an iPhone. All the cast shot their own stuff, so it's a very simple concept. They did a great job with it. It's very tongue in cheek, doesn't take itself too seriously, but that's something that I think, knowing what you can do. I mean, if you're going to do a short, keeping it contained, keeping it in locations, keeping costs down, all that stuff, because as the more locations you have, the bigger it gets. It gets more and more expensive, and that's even in the feature world the same thing. As I write now, I'm very aware of budget on anything.
Right, right.
Because I realize I'm going to spend a lot of money on name actors if I do it that way, which is fine. But the more times you have to change locations, and like we talked about Patrick yesterday, filming in the feature world, you're 12 to 15 days shoots these days. So you can't have 15 locations. You're never going to be able to finish.
Your friend Sean has a question for you. Says, have you ever thought about writing a role for Danny DeVito in one of your films?
This guy. It's an inside joke.
Yeah, feeling.
Yeah, one of the investors for Hunter's Moon happens to be a good friend with Sean and I. We all grew up together, and we would go to, I don't know how this started, but I'm sure we would go to movies and as kids and say, I didn't know Danny DeVito was in this movie, even if he wasn't in the theater, as a joke. And it became this ongoing thing. The investor, his name's Chris, when Chris had his second child or third child or whatever, I actually printed up a onesie for the baby that had Danny DeVito on the front of it and sent it as a gift to him and his wife. And his wife didn't think it was as funny as I did, but but yeah, Danny DeVito is a long running joke. I would love to work. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I think the man's a genius, but no, that's a good question, Sean. All joking aside, no, I have not thought of that.
Gosh, it's now 10. Okay, we have so much more to talk about, so we're gonna go ahead and, you know what they say, leave them wanting more.
Sure.
So but when No Tears in Hell come out, we will come back and we will talk all things No Tears in Hell. We'll talk things Purgatory. We'll talk Death Squad for sure. Those are all things we didn't get to talk about, but like I said, we'll keep them wanting more. I'd like to thank Michael Caissie to coming in and doing 8 questions with. I'd like to thank the chat for coming in and posting some questions and comments. You guys' support is everything. Yeah, I had a blast. This has been just amazing. This is why I love doing this sort of thing.
Let's do it. Let's do it again. Yeah, because I got No Tears in Hell, and then Purgatory season 2 comes out the next couple months here, and season 1 is on Popstar TV now. So anyone that hasn't seen Purgatory, season 1, it's on Popstar TV. Like I said, Sin Origin. If you haven't seen Sin Origin, it's a great movie. And Rigo's first movie, KM31. If you're a horror fan, highly recommend KM31. But yeah, and then I appreciate all the support from you, Patrick, and the people that watch. Thank you, and people that are renting and watching and buying the things that I do. Thank you. And anybody that wants to communicate with me, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. Facebook, I'm a little bit more contained in regards to who I let into that circle, because it's a little bit more of my personal life, family life, a little bit more. But Twitter and Instagram are definitely, I do post personal stuff there as well, but that's more of if you want to interact with me, ask questions, The gentleman who's writing his stuff, his first features. If you have any questions or whatever, feel free to reach out. Within reason, I always try and help out other writers. I do realize that there becomes a time where things I just get too hectic and I can't. I'm always respectful with that, and I try and be communicative with that. It's like this might take me a while to look at this. I try and do that, and I actually owe a couple people a screenplay read, so I need to do that. Um, but yeah, I appreciate what you do, Patrick. Thank you for having me, and let's do it again soon.
We will do that. Thank you for everybody else, and we'll be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. We're interviewing the young Australian actor Sean Anthony Robinson. He'll be here at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock our time, 10 in the morning in Australia. So we'll be catching him eating breakfast. So thanks everybody, and we will see you soon. If you want to stay right where you're at, Michael, I'll talk to you 1 second.
Got it.
And of course, this happens too.
we can't not go live. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to end it. Stay right there. I'm going to see if
Okay. Yep, I'm still live. Hi, everybody.
there we go.